Chapter 1059. Jiang was proficient in all professions, but he was not proficient in the art of deduction. Among the divination techniques, there were three top-notch ones: the fate roulette, the heavenly pass of the sun and moon, and the stellar derivation technique. Among them, the fate roulette and the heavenly pass of the sun and moon had been controlled by the Pingtian clan and the Tianya clan since ancient times. They had never been taught to outsiders. The stellar derivation technique was the only one that could be cultivated in the world. Jiang really hadn't expected to run into a cultivator who had mastered the great star derivation method here. Moreover, the other party was willing to trade for it. There was no reason for Jiang not to agree. He could even give the other party more points. However, to everyone's surprise, the young man shook his head and said, "I'm alone. 1 point is enough." After saying that, he condensed his divine thought, and a jade slip that recorded the stellar derivation technique fell in front of Jiang. "You can ask the ninth emperor to see if I'm lying," the young man said with a smile. Jiang naturally did not dare to be careless. He would definitely ask the ninth emperor to test it out. Jiang was pleasantly surprised. The stellar derivation method was real, and it was even complete. However, before Jiang could rejoice for long, his face darkened. This was because the young man who had mastered the stellar derivation technique had actually started to steal business. "Everyone, do you know about my stellar derivation technique? Now, those red stars on the star compass represent the positions of the cultivators from the Great Thousand World." The young man said, "Now, each person will have one treasure. As long as I like it, I can get one person's position." As soon as he said that, someone immediately took out a divine herb and said, "Can I?" "Of course." The young man smiled and accepted the divine herb. Then he used his divine thought to tell him the position of a cultivator from the Great Thousand World. Then he looked at Jiang and said, "Lord Tianshun, I found a cultivator who is at the same level as you. What do you think of this?" Jiang frowned. He felt that this young man was a bit of a scam. "You don't want points, but you want to steal my business?" However, Jiang didn't make things difficult for the other party. After all, he had so many businesses. It wouldn't hurt to give up some of them. Subsequently, Jiang tore through the void under the guidance of that person. It did not take long for them to find the cultivator from the Great Thousand World. Without saying anything else, Jiang directly took action and suppressed him. Just like that, he obtained a point and gave it to that person. In the end, that person left behind his cultivation technique and all his treasures before heading to the outer realm with a face full of excitement. "Everyone, don't be hasty. Come one by one." At the same time, at the mountain gate, the young man's business could be said to be booming. There were even people queuing up in front of him, each offering a treasure in exchange for a seat with a cultivator from the Great Thousand World. As for Jiang, what he did was much simpler. Whoever got the coordinates, he would go with them and suppress them to gain points. In just half a day's time, Jiang had already subdued over 80 people, and there was no lack of chief gods among them. And all of this was seen by the group of emperors from the outer realm. "This kid is too much. F***CK. How can he do this? This kid, his combat power is a bit strong. Can a dark god suppress a chief god?" At this moment, the emperor's expressions were ugly. Although Jiang had not harmed the lives of the cultivators from the Great Thousand World this time. However, this was a complete loss of face. So many cultivators from the Great Thousand World were being chased down by someone. How many people from the Great Thousand World entered the divine realm this time? The Buddha Arch asked. "A total of more than 30,000 people," someone replied. "How many people are left now? How long until the emperors descend?" The Buddha Arch asked again. "There are more than 25,000 people left now. There are about 10 days left before the emperors descend." When the Buddha Arch heard this, his expression immediately turned ugly. He roughly estimated that according to Jiang's suppression speed, in 10 days' time, all the cultivators below the Divine King level would be suppressed by him. Tell everyone below the Divine King level to come back. At this moment, even the Buddha Arch could not remain calm. What kind of joke was this? Could he really suppress tens of thousands of people? At that time, not to mention the tens of thousands of people from the six realms who would survive, the Great Thousand World would lose face. I thought the cultivators from the Great Thousand World were powerful, but they were still suppressed by the boss one by one. Lord Tianchen's power is not something we can fathom. At this moment, a group of beings from the divine realm who were standing behind the Buddha of the Arch were discussing softly, all of them looking excited. They all knew that the destruction of the six realms was inevitable and unstoppable. However, before that, they could teach the beings from the Great Thousand World a lesson to vent their anger. What do you know? The true geniuses of the Great Thousand World would not bother to come here. Someone retorted, the cultivators who came to the six realms this time are considered average in the Great Thousand World. That's right. The geniuses of the Great Thousand World are not weaker than the Tianchen you speak of. Oh, is that so? Is Feng Lin Ling from the Heavenly Phoenix clan considered a genius? What about Feng Qilin? Wakako suddenly asked. As soon as he said that, some of the cultivators from the Great Thousand World were speechless. Feng Lin Ling and Feng Qilin were definitely geniuses. But what happened in the end? They were still beaten up by Jiang Chun. Lord Buddha of the Arch, shouldn't we redeem the reputation of the Great Thousand World this time? One of the emperors frowned, his expression ugly. When the Buddha of the Arch heard that, he was silent for a moment. Then, a trace of killing intent appeared in his eyes. Through the clouds, he saw Jiang Chun and asked softly if such a person is allowed to grow up. Limitless. He might even be a threat to us. This person should not be allowed to live. The emperors spoke one after another, feeling the pressure. This made them feel strange. After all, they were emperors, but they felt threatened by a Xian god. Let's wait for a few more days. I believe, when the emperors descend, they should bring a few geniuses over to train. The Buddha of the Arch said, at that time, we'll use him as a whetstone. After saying that, the Buddha Thearka's eyes narrowed. The Buddha light in his pupils expanded as if he saw a certain part of the world. After a few breaths, he suddenly smiled and said, the eternal fortress is about to be broken. As soon as he said that, excitement appeared in the eyes of the other emperors. One had to know that behind the foreign realm was the Great Thousand World. The reason why the foreign realm wanted to destroy the six realms was because of the Great Thousand World. The foreign realm's real purpose was to enter the divine realm and take away the invincible warrior's corpse. A few generations had passed, and the foreign realm was about to succeed. When the eternal fortress was broken, the foreign realm's army would advance into the divine realm and combine with the emperors. How could the six realms not be destroyed? Chapter 1060. If the boundless world wanted to enter the six realms, they had to cross the southern wall. However, the southern wall could not be broken through by external forces. They could only wait for it to collapse on its own. The boundless world had thought of all sorts of ways for the unrivaled expert's corpse. Finally, a few eras ago, they used a secret technique to send some creatures into a small world. And that small world was the foreign realm in the later generations. The foreign creatures obeyed the will of the boundless world and wanted to destroy the six realms and seize the unrivaled expert's corpse from the inside. However, they didn't expect the six realms to be so tyrannical, fighting with the foreign realm for several eras. Even if the five realms were destroyed, there was still the Eternal City holding on. But now, the Eternal City was about to collapse. However, the current Eternal City was no longer important to the six realms or even to the boundless world. After all, even if the foreign realm couldn't break through the Eternal City, the southern wall had already collapsed. The emperors of the boundless world would descend sooner or later, and the six realms were destined to be destroyed. However, with the group of creatures from the foreign realm, the speed of destroying the six realms would be faster and simpler. He hasn't been found yet? He has a unique aura on his body. As long as we get close to him, we can sense it. We sent out many people, but we didn't find anything. At the same time, At the intersection of yin and yang, a few emperors of the underworld gathered together. They all frowned and had ugly expressions. It wasn't like the underworld didn't do anything these days. They sent out many people to search for the creature who crawled out from the underworld. However, until now, they didn't find anything. Some even suspected that the person had already gone to the foreign realm and was planning to go to the boundless world. At the thought of this, these emperors of the underworld couldn't sit still. If that creature went to the boundless world, it would be like a stone sinking into the sea, ethereal and difficult to find. Let's go and take a look. We absolutely can't let him escape. He has a big secret on him. At this moment, the intersection of yin and yang erupted, and another emperor descended. After more than 10 breaths, the number of emperors from the underworld reached 8. These 8 people directly rushed up and arrived in the outer realm, standing in front of the Buddha Emperor and the others. We destroyed the 6 realms, different from your underworld. One of the emperors hurriedly said, the 6 realms and the underworld are not the same world. You wouldn't attack for the 6 realms, would you? The netherworld is the netherworld. It's a completely different world from the mortal realm. How can we make a move for the sake of a mere mortal realm? The Buddha the Arch and the others were confused. Since they weren't here for the sake of the mortal realm, then what were the 8 emperors doing here? Looking at the scenery? We're here to look for someone, an emperor of the underworld said in a deep voice. We suspect that that person has sneaked in. Oh? What kind of person is worthy enough for the 8 emperors to attack at the same time? The Buddha the Arch asked curiously. What does that have to do with you? Let's wait and see. As long as we get close to him, we'll be able to sense it. The emperors of the underworld were very powerful. They were not afraid of the emperors of the great wide world. Moreover, after he finished speaking, he directly passed by the Buddha the Arch and the others and arrived in front of the living beings of the 6 realms who had obtained points and arrived at the outer realm. However, to their disappointment, there wasn't the living being they wanted among these people. To be able to make 8 emperors attack at the same time, gentlemen, we are also curious. I wonder if you can tell us? The Buddha the Arch and the others asked curiously. However, the 8 emperors from the underworld didn't say much. They turned around and flew towards the mortal realm. Are you looking for a living being related to the underworld? Just as they turned back, the Buddha the Arch suddenly asked with a smile that wasn't a smile. As soon as he said this, the 8 emperors from the underworld paused. They suddenly turned around and stared at the Buddha the Arch. How do you know? One of them asked, his eyes full of doubt. All of you have a unique aura of the underworld. The Buddha the Arch said, I really didn't expect that the underworld created in the later generations would have such a deep foundation. There are actually 8 emperors. I can't imagine how deep the foundation of the ancient underworld was. I think it was much stronger than the current underworld, right? The Buddha the Arch said softly. When the 8 emperors from the underworld heard this, they looked at each other and were very puzzled. Why was the Buddha the Arch so clear about the matters of the underworld? Could it be that the underworld had already been infiltrated by the great wide world? However, they quickly denied it. One had to know that the underworld didn't belong to any world. It was independent. Moreover, living beings from other worlds couldn't survive in the underworld at all. Even emperor-level experts would be suppressed by the laws of the underworld after entering the underworld. They might even be obliterated. From this, they could be sure that there were absolutely no living beings from the great wide world in the underworld. However, why was the Buddha the Arch so clear about the matters of the underworld? The great wide world has always been curious about the ancient underworld. The Buddha the Arch explained with a smile. Anything related to the ancient underworld is not a small matter. It seems that the great wide world is also very concerned about the ancient underworld. An emperor of the underworld said in a deep voice, Why is the great wide world coveting the inheritance of the ancient underworld? Everyone wants the inheritance of the ancient underworld, but it depends on whether they have the strength to take it. The Buddha the Arch shook his head and said, As far as I know, the inheritance of the ancient underworld is in the God realm. But even if the emperors descend, I'm afraid they won't be able to obtain the inheritance of the ancient underworld." As he spoke, the Buddha of the Arch pointed to the forbidden area of the East Sea and said, "Among the 3 mountains and 6 seas, 5 seas are the inheritance of the ancient underworld," right? When everyone heard this, they weren't surprised. After all, the 5 seas of the 3 mountains and 6 seas were originally forces and sects formed after the collapse of the ancient underworld. The 5 seas naturally had a part of the inheritance of the ancient underworld. However, it had to be clear that that was only a part of the inheritance. As for the creature that the underworld was looking for, although it had crawled out of the burial ground of the underworld, it was very likely that it had the complete inheritance of the ancient underworld hidden in its body. One had to know that where the mountain gate of the underworld was built was on a piece of wasteland. And what was under the wasteland? Not many people knew. However, anyone who knew would feel fear and dread towards that piece of wasteland. This was because the deepest part of the wasteland was said to be the ruins of the ancient underworld. And that creature, to be precise, did not crawl out of the wasteland of the underworld, but crawled out of the ruins of the ancient underworld. After saying so much, what do you want to do? The Emperor of the Underworld stared at the Buddha of the Arch. "If I can help you find that creature, can the underworld promise me a condition?" The Buddha of the Arch asked. "You can find him. As long as we can find him, you can ask for anything that the underworld can do. If we can do it, the underworld will definitely do it." Chapter 1061. The Netherworld was an extraordinary place. It was an independent world. If not for the chaos of yin and yang, the Netherworld would not have appeared. People might not even know that there was such a special world like the Netherworld. However, those who knew about the Netherworld knew how powerful it was. This world that had existed since ancient times was so vast that it was far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Moreover, because the order in the Netherworld was very stable and there was no chaos, the Netherworld was full of experts and geniuses. With the accumulation of time, the Netherworld's foundation was absolutely terrifying. Even the great 1,000 worlds were speculating about the Netherworld and were somewhat afraid of it. At this moment, the 8 emperors from the Netherworld were somewhat excited because Buddha of the Arch could help them find the creature that crawled out from the Netherworld. If they could really find it, then the Netherworld had hope of obtaining the complete inheritance of the ancient Netherworld. "First, tell me what you want me to do in the Netherworld," one of the emperors said. Buddha of the Arch heard this and smiled. He looked very relaxed and said, "It's very simple. Help us destroy the coordinates left behind by the ancestors of the 6 realms." The coordinates of the ancestors? Those things are not ordinary and will be contaminated with great karma. The 8 emperors of the Netherworld's expression became serious and did not immediately agree. It was because they also knew how terrifying the ancestors of the 6 realms were. One had to know that since ancient times, yin and yang had been in chaos. Therefore, the creatures of the Netherworld had entered the world of the living before. However, the first few times, they only came to take a look and did not do anything out of line. At that time, the creatures of the living in the world of the living also treated the Netherworld with great hospitality. The creatures of the Netherworld also had enough time to explore the world of the living. According to what they knew, the ancestors of the living were not ordinary. The Tao and power they grasped were far from what the later generations could compare with. Moreover, the ancestors had disappeared for so long. If they were still alive, their cultivation would be so profound that they would have already transcended. It was not a wise choice to have a conflict with those transcended experts. However, when they thought about finding that creature, the 8 emperors of the Netherworld were also very tempted. After careful consideration, they agreed in the end, "I don't need you to really destroy those coordinates. After all, those coordinates are not that easy to destroy." Buddha of the Arch said, "You just need to disturb them a little. That's good." Finally, both parties reached an agreement. The Buddha of the Arch began to deduce and search for the living being that had crawled out from the Netherworld. Of the 8 emperors from the underworld, 2 had left this place. A dozen breaths later, one of the emperors arrived in front of the mountain gate of the Transcending Heaven Church. He didn't say another word. Instead, he struck out with his fist and directly shattered the mountain gate of the heavenly reaching church. Then, he rushed straight in and flew toward the back mountain of the sky-reaching church. As far as he knew, there was a set of coordinates in the mountain behind the sky-reaching church. However, when he arrived at the back of the mountain, he saw that Katsura Matsuda and the others were already standing there. Moreover, there was a blurry figure in front of them. This illusory figure was unreal, but it gave people the illusion of being invincible. It was as if the existence of this illusory figure was the only truth in this world. This feeling was very mysterious. It made the emperor tremble all over, and even his soul was trembling. He suddenly realized that this shadow was most likely the ancestor of the sky-reaching church. He hadn't returned yet, but he was almost there. "Excuse me. Goodbye." At this moment, the emperor of the underworld didn't say a word. After cupping his hands and bowing, he turned around and left. No, to be more precise, he turned around and ran. Even if it was just an illusory figure of the ancestor, he didn't dare to fight against it. Although he didn't know the strength and cultivation of the ancestor, everyone knew that the ancestor couldn't be easily provoked. It seems that the great wide world still has some self-awareness. Katsura Matsuda frowned. They all know that if the ancestor returns, the 6 realms won't necessarily be destroyed. They want to stop the ancestor from returning? Luo Shu said in a deep voice. Now, in this world, how many people dare to fight? And how many emperors dare to fight? In the end, someone will stand up. Katsura Matsuda sighed. Alas, it's a pity that my cultivation is not enough. If I had the cultivation of an emperor god, I would dare to challenge the emperor. Luo Shu and the others heard this and smiled bitterly. However, they still agreed with Katsura Matsuda's words. This was because they knew better than anyone that their master was very mysterious, very strong, and very terrifying. At the same time, in the Chedi sect not far from the sky-reaching church. This time, the emperor went to the Chedi sect. However, before he could break through the mountain gate of the Chedi sect, a terrifying aura erupted from the sect. Then, a white skull appeared from within the Chedi sect. It was like a pale white full moon, hanging high in the sky. Hiss! The emperor of the netherworld sucked in a breath of cold air and thought to himself, the ancestor of the Chedi sect might return earlier than the ancestor of the sky-reaching church. Then, the emperor of the netherworld ran away again. On the other side, another emperor of the netherworld was walking around the world. With the emperor's divine ability, he searched for the coordinates of the ancestor. A few days later, he found a total of 6 coordinates and sealed them one by one. The aura of the netherworld? How dare you? You're just a bastard of the netherworld. How dare you interfere with our return? At this moment, in a certain ethereal area, a few figures burst into flames. Some of them roared, some of them were filled with killing intent, and some of them even took out a green spear, aiming at the emperor of the netherworld. Unfortunately, the coordinates were sealed, and they had lost their direction temporarily. They would not be able to return in a short period of time. Of course, this was only a short period of time. As the ancestor, since they could leave the coordinates, they would definitely be able to find the way back. Sealing the coordinates they left behind would only delay their return. I've sealed 6 of the ancestors' coordinates. Is that enough? I've sealed 11. A few days later, the 2 emperors of the netherworld returned from the netherworld. In these few days, they had sealed a total of 17 coordinates. That's enough. Buddha nodded and said, I'm afraid there are only 20 or so of the ancestors of the 6 realms left. After sealing 17 coordinates, the remaining ancestors will not be able to stop the emperors of the great 1,000 realms. It's time to fulfill your promise, the emperor of the netherworld said. Buddha smiled and nodded. Then, he formed a seal with both hands, and rays of Buddhist light shone down. In an instant, all the living beings in the heavenly realm, no matter where they were enveloped by a layer of Buddhist light. It was as if a divine light was descending, giving people the feeling that they were about to ascend to heaven. The secret technique of the Buddhist race, Buddhist light illumination. At this moment, in a certain ancient tomb in the heavenly realm, a fat Taoist exclaimed in surprise. His expression changed drastically when he saw the Buddhist light on his body. Moreover, there were wisps of black fog circulating in his body, as if something was about to rush out. Damn it! The netherworld and the great thousand realms are working together. A fierce look flashed across the fat Taoist's eyes. He wanted to escape, but he was unwilling to give up. This was because the ancient tomb he found this time had what he was looking for. I'm Mu Yud. After digging graves for my entire life, I've finally found a clue. This fat Taoist was Mu Yud. He roared angrily. He was unwilling to give up. The special hoe in his hand had already dug out most of the graves. Upon closer inspection, there seemed to be a door at the bottom of the graves. Behind the door, there seemed to be a link to another world. Mu Yud could feel that the aura from the door was definitely related to what he was looking for. Tian Song, I'll leave it to you. I can only ask you to help me for a while. Mu Yud sighed. He had no choice but to take out Tian Song's corpse and throw it out of the ancient tomb. At the same time, Buddha Thearka's eyes shone with Buddhist light. Runes gathered in his eyes, and finally, his pupils condensed. Then, he pointed at where Mu Yud was. There, Buddha Thearka said softly. As soon as he finished speaking, the 8 emperors from the netherworld disappeared and rushed toward where Mu Yud was. Chapter 1062. Outside the tomb, 8 emperors from the netherworld had arrived. Their faces were filled with excitement, and their eyes were burning with passion. They had been searching for a living being for several eras, and today, they had finally found it. And that living being was related to the inheritance of the ancient netherworld. Boom! However, before they could enter the tomb, an explosion came from below. Then, Tian Song's physical body appeared and punched the 8 emperors. How dare you? You're just one person, yet you dare to fight against 8 emperors? You're courting death. These people were furious, and even more so, emotionally moved. They had mistakenly thought that Tian Song's physical body was the living being they were looking for. Now that the 8 of them had joined forces, they did not dare to hurt Tian Song at all. They were worried that if they killed him, the inheritance of the ancient netherworld would be destroyed. For a moment, the 8 emperors were fighting against Tian Song's physical body, and they were actually fighting back and forth. Fellow cultivators, the person you're looking for is not him. The Buddhist Thearka's voice came from the outer realm as he pointed out, that person is below the tomb. What? This emperor is not the one we're looking for? The 8 emperors were dumbfounded. After fighting for so long and being so careful to not kill each other, it turned out that it was not him. For a moment, the 8 emperors were furious, and their attacks became fiercer. At the same time, Jiang Chun, who was challenging the cultivators of the greater world, suddenly trembled. He was agitated, and he felt that something was wrong with him. However, upon closer inspection, his body was in good condition. His blood and qi were abundant, and his soul was bright. There were no signs of injury. Even his foundation and Tao fruit were complete. For a moment, Jiang Chun was puzzled. Why did his body tremble just now? What was that throbbing in his heart? There's an emperor-level battle there. Damn, what did I just see? 8 emperors fighting 1 emperor of the Yang realm. After a few breaths, the battle on the tomb was discovered, and it instantly swept across the entire divine realm. In the face of such a battle, it naturally attracted many people. Jiang Chun was also quite close to the tomb, so he also went over. Jiang Chun's face darkened when he saw Tian Song's body being pushed back by the 8 nether emperors. Tian Song's body was even cracked. Mu Yud, come out! At this moment, Jiang Chun could not help but roar, and the people around him were shocked. But by then, Jiang Chun had many points under his control. Seeing Jiang Chun not angry at all, the onlookers immediately surrounded him. They started to fawn on him. Lord Tian Chun, who made you angry? Tell me, as long as I can, I'll help you. As long as it's not an emperor, I can even flatten a god emperor for you. But the premise is, I need 10 points. Suddenly, Jiang Chun, Chun God Jiang Chun, Jiang Chun, Jiang Chun frowned. He drew Mu Yud's portrait in the air and said in a deep voice, "Find him. 10 points. You just need to find it, regardless of life or death." The group of people was stunned. Then they went crazy. Soon, someone noticed that the 8 emperors had abandoned Tian Song's physical body and were rushing toward the ancient tomb. However, there was a powerful array around the ancient tomb. Even the emperors could not enter it in a short time. He should be in the ancient tomb. Mu Yud, that scoundrel, is robbing tombs again. Jiang Chun squinted his eyes and disappeared from where he had been standing. He went to a dark corner and made a series of hand seals. Finally, he managed to break a corner of the array before the emperors and entered the ancient tomb. Mu Yud managed to break through all the traps without any hindrance. When Jiang Chun arrived at the depths of the ancient tomb, he saw Mu Yud digging the tomb. "Damn you! Hurry up and take back Tian Song's physical body. That's my physical body. It's about to be destroyed," Jiang Chun said. Mu Yud looked up and was stunned. He did not expect to see Jiang Chun here. Then he smiled and made a series of hand seals. He took back Tian Song's physical body and destroyed the imprint he had left on it. Then he returned Tian Song's physical body to Jiang Chun. "What are you doing here? Are the 8 emperors looking for you?" Jiang Chun took back his physical body and said, "Why aren't you leaving? That's 8 emperors. I want to leave, but I don't want to." Mu Yud said, "I've dug up so many tombs just to find one thing. Now, that thing is right in front of me." "What is it?" Jiang Chun was confused and moved closer to Mu Yud. He focused his gaze and saw that the door under the soil had been cleaned up. When he looked at it carefully, he saw that the door was made of some kind of divine gold. It shone with a dim light and had a mysterious aura. "This is the aura of reincarnation." Jiang Chun was shocked. He had sensed this aura from the 9th princess before. "What are you looking for?" Jiang Chun asked hurriedly. "Reincarnation hunters. Night watchers," Mu Yud said seriously. "In this world, only the night watchers know the truth about reincarnation." "Reincarnation hunters? Night watchers?" Jiang Chun felt goosebumps all over his body when he heard those words. According to the 9th princess, Jiang Chun was also a reincarnation stowaway. Now, there were reincarnation hunters and night watchers behind the door. Jiang Chun did not dare to stay here any longer. Although Jiang Chun was also confused as to why Mu Yud wanted the hunters and the night watchers of the samsara world. He didn't have time to think too much at the moment. "Are you leaving or not? If you want to leave, I can take you away now, before the 8 great emperors arrive," Jiang Chun said in a deep voice. "I'm not leaving. This is the closest I've ever been to the truth. How can I leave?" Mu Yud said coldly, "I want to see who destroyed the ancient hell. Who destroyed my legacy." "What?" At this moment, not only Jiang Chun, even the 9th princess who was lying in the sky-burying coffin exclaimed in shock. They stared at Mu Yud in shock. They could not believe that this bastard Taoist was the founder of the ancient hell. Aren't you the lord of the 4 underworlds? Aren't you the lord of the underworld?" Jiang Chun asked. "How did you become the founder of the ancient hell?" "The ancient hell is in the underworld," Mu Yud said. "There's no time to explain now. Hurry up and leave. I can sense that there are living beings sleeping behind the door. It's not a good thing for a reincarnation stowaway like you." Jiang Chun hesitated for a moment. Then he asked, "What about the 8 emperors?" "Them? Let them come and try," Mu Yud said coldly. After saying that, Mu Yud swung the hammer down, and cracks appeared on the door. At the same time, something behind the door seemed to be awakened. There was a thunderous sound of breathing. Chapter 1063. It was an ancient door that was covered with runes and looked like a seal. At this moment, as Mu Yud struck the door with his hammer, the patterns seemed to have been eroded, and they disappeared with the wind. A crack appeared on the door, and an aura that made Jiang Chun and the ninth princess hearts palpitate spread out. Jiang Chun didn't know what this aura was. He didn't know why this aura made him feel scared. However, the ninth princess screamed. She knew that this aura belonged to the reincarnation hunters. Are you crazy? Do you want to kill us? The ninth princess's voice changed. It was fear that came from the bottom of her heart. Hurry up and leave. Muyuda also knew the seriousness of the situation. The power in his body was recovering, and he seemed to be returning to his peak state. Then, he reached out and pushed Jiang Chun into the void, sending him out of the tomb. Buzz! At the same time, the door exploded. A terrifying black hurricane came out of the door. The entire tomb exploded. Dust and debris flew everywhere. At the same time, the 8 emperors rushed to Muyuda. Found you. Let's see where you can run after hiding for a few generations. The 8 emperors said in low voices. There was no fear in their eyes, only excitement. When they looked at Muyuda, they didn't see a person. They saw the inheritance of the ancient hell. However, Muyuda chuckled. The power in his body was recovering, like an ancient beast awakening. He glanced at the 8 emperors and said disdainfully, Do I need to hide? What do you mean? The expressions of the 8 emperors froze, and their expressions changed drastically. That was because there were rows of living beings walking out of the door. They were wearing bronze battle intent and holding blood-red sabers. They looked like zombies. However, they had a unique aura that frightened even the emperors. Are they reincarnation hunters? Why are there so many reincarnation hunters here? The 8 emperors' expressions changed. Although they weren't reincarnation stowaways, they didn't dare to have too much to do with the reincarnation hunters. This thing had too much karma. The consequences would be severe if they got involved. It was very likely that they would attract unknown trouble and danger. Where the weapons are hidden? At this moment, Muyuda's eyes were shining with excitement as he stared at the rows of reincarnation hunters. Then, he struck out with his palm and pushed the 8 emperors away. Then, like a shadow, he leaped through the rows of reincarnation realm hunters and rushed into the door. You still want to run? This time, you can't run away, the 8 emperors shouted. At this moment, they did not care about the rows of samsara hunters and directly chased down. Boom! However, the reincarnation hunters seemed to have a trace of spirituality or some kind of mechanism. They directly raised their blades and slashed at the 8 emperors. Retreat! Not good. There's something behind the door. In terms of strength, the 8 emperors could easily wipe out these samsara hunters. However, at this moment, they felt as if there was a pair of eyes staring at them from behind the door. As long as they dared to make a move, the owner of the eyes would make a move. In fact, it could even destroy them effortlessly. It's the Night Watchers. This place, what the hell is going on? The 8 emperors were terrified. As emperors, they were invincible in the eyes of the world. However, at this moment, they were afraid. They did not dare to chase down. Their faces were filled with reluctance as they quickly retreated. Just as they retreated from the ruins of the ancient tomb, a presumptuous and arrogant laughter came from behind the door. That was Muyuda's voice. After thousands of years, I've finally found the source. It's you? Muyuda laughed wildly, as if he had gone mad. Then, a battle wave came from behind the door. The sound was so loud that it shook the entire divine world. Even the Buddhist Thearch and the others in the outer realm could feel it. They squinted their eyes as their bodies and minds trembled. They could clearly feel that the battle wave was definitely above the emperors. That living being that crawled out from the underworld, could it really have the inheritance of the ancient underworld? A transcendent. It's definitely a transcendent. The Buddhist Thearch and the others were shocked. The battle wave was definitely not something an emperor could release. It was a transcendent that surpassed the emperors and stood above all things. Fortunately, this transcendent did not care about the divine world. Otherwise, even if the emperors came, they would have to pay a terrible price to destroy the divine world, the Buddhist Thearch said in a low voice. There were transcendent beings in the great thousand world, but they were very few. In fact, they could be counted on one hand. Those people would not appear for an era or even a few eras. They were high and mighty, and nothing in the world could touch their hearts. They seemed to have surpassed the 6 paths and the 5 elements. They did not care about worldly affairs and looked down on the world coldly. The power of such a living being was definitely not something that ordinary people could imagine. Even the emperors did not know how powerful a transcendent being was. Unless one took that step and became a transcendent being, no one would be able to imagine such a mighty power. Heaven and earth open a line. Prove me the 6 reincarnations. Suddenly, Muyuda's long roar came from behind the door. Then, with a loud explosion, the rows of reincarnation hunters shattered. At the same time, an extremely ear-piercing scream came from behind the door. It sounded like the wailing of a ghost. Then almost in an instant, all the sound disappeared, and even the door disappeared. It was as if the world behind the door had been destroyed. However, Muyuda had also disappeared. No one knew where he went, and no one knew whether he was dead or alive. Did he go to the world of the Night Watchers? Does that world really exist? Many people were puzzled. They knew about the Night Watchers and guessed that they might be living beings from another world. However, since ancient times, no one knew what the Night Watchers were. Most of them were just guesses. But now, Muyuda seemed to have fought with the Night Watchers and entered the world of the Night Watchers. What kind of world was that? What did the Night Watchers look like? How strong were they? What was the meaning of the existence of the Night Watchers? Many doubts troubled the people. Perhaps only those who had reached the level of transcendent were qualified to understand these secrets. Damn it, is the legacy of the ancient underworld broken just like that? The 8 emperors from the netherworld had ugly expressions. They had planned for several eras, and finally entered the mortal realm in this era. They saw that Muyuda was about to be suppressed, but he had left. How dare a living being from the netherworld covet the legacy of the ancient underworld? Do you think that the 5 seas do not exist? You have been in the mortal realm for too long. Have you forgotten that the master of the mortal realm is not a living being from the netherworld? On this day, in the forbidden zone of the East Sea, 5 clouds rose from the bottom of the sea. Figures flashed in the fog, and at the same time, a voice rang out, shaking the entire god realm. Chapter 1064. The Birth of the 5 Seas. At this moment, the world was shaken, and a storm was brewing. Many people knew that the existence of the 5 seas was to destroy the world, rebuild the ancient netherworld, and even evolve the 6 paths of reincarnation again. In the eyes of the world, reincarnation represented death and new life. Therefore, the will of the 5 seas was to destroy the entire world and use the power of death to establish the 6 paths of reincarnation. However, how many people in this world wanted to die? Therefore, most people stood on the opposite side of the 5 seas. However, there are also a few people who sought refuge under the 5 seas. This was because the 5 seas had a portion of the ancient netherworld's inheritance. They could allow some living beings to reincarnate normally and live another life. This was a fatal temptation for those who were nearing the end of their lifespans. Since ancient times, countless experts had found the 5 seas at the last moment of their lives and sought refuge with them. From there, they obtained reincarnation and obtained a new life. It was precisely because of this that the 5 seas had always existed and had always been glorious and prosperous. They had never fallen. At this moment, with the birth of the 5 seas, some supreme experts who had hidden themselves from the world actually appeared in several corners of the world. The lowest cultivation level of these people was at the supreme god level, and the highest was at the emperor level. Moreover, there were many of them. Welcome to the birth of the 5 seas. We kneel and greet you. These people looked in the direction of the forbidden land of East Sea and bowed. These people were those who had sought refuge under the 5 seas and successfully reincarnated. They were under the orders of the 5 seas. Now that the 5 seas had appeared, they naturally had to return. Even the five seas have never spoken in the mortal realm. What right do you have to speak in the netherworld? Don't tell me you think that the mortal realm is as simple as it seems. At the same time, five figures walked out of the forbidden land of East Sea. Their bodies were shrouded in fog, like the aura of reincarnation. They gave off a feeling of vicissitudes of time, but they were incomparably lively. Vitality and lethargy coexisted. Death and life were compatible. They seemed to be acting out reincarnation with their own bodies. With the appearance of these five people, five islands slowly rose from the forbidden land of East Sea. Those five islands were the sects of the five seas: Reincarnation Sea, Netherworld Sea, Extradition Sea, Samluo Sea, and Rebirth Sea. Five seas. Every island was filled with people. Some of them did not have high cultivations, but they gave off a feeling of transcendence. There were also people whose cultivation bases were extremely strong, not weaker than emperors. At this moment, they stood there quietly, like azure dragons looking down on the world. Five seas? You want to destroy the six realms, so why can't I, the underworld, help you? The will of the five seas is to destroy the world. It is the same as what we want to do. The emperors of the underworld said. They were not afraid of the five seas. This was because the netherworld was not weaker than the five seas, and it did not even fear the greater thousand realms. However, they seemed to have forgotten that they were still in the mortal realm, and that the experts of the netherworld had yet to truly descend upon the mortal realm. My five seas will use our own methods to destroy the world and grant it new life. In the sky, the creature that belonged to the reincarnation sea said, "Our method is different from yours. The true meaning of annihilation and destruction is the true meaning of rebirth and reincarnation." The creature from the netherworld sea whispered, "You people do not understand reincarnation." When the emperors of the netherworld heard this, disdain appeared on their faces, and they snorted. In their eyes, destruction was destruction, and destruction was destruction. How could it have anything to do with rebirth? They felt that these words of Wu Hai's were merely a kind of high-sounding wording. Scram back to the netherworld. The six realms are not something you can taint. Moreover, the living beings you are looking for have already disappeared. They're no longer in the six realms. The leaders of the five seas spoke one after another, as if they were unwilling to make a move and wanted these creatures of the netherworld to return by themselves. However, they were all overlords and emperors. In a situation where their standpoints were different, who would listen to you? Even if they wanted to leave, if they really left after hearing what you said, wouldn't they be disgraced if they listened to you? Do we have to leave just because you told us to? Who do you think you are? We are all emperors. What right do you have? The emperors of the netherworld had unfriendly expressions. At the same time, at the intersection of yin and yang, rumbling sounds erupted. In a few breaths' time, another 6 emperors descended. At this point, there were a total of 14 emperors descending from the netherworld. Moreover, at the intersection of yin and yang, figures flashed. It seemed that there were emperors of the netherworld crossing the Luo River and rushing toward the world of the living. 3 mountains leave the netherworld to me, the 5 seas. I'll leave this group of ants in the outer realm to you, the leader of the rebirth sea said softly. Sure. At this moment, in the forbidden land of the East Sea, a few rays of light shot into the sky and rushed toward the outer realm. Upon closer inspection, they were more than 10 emperors. They were all wearing the same robes, and their auras were extremely powerful. They were all from the 3 mountains. Hiss! There are 2 such terrifying forces in the 6 realms. What a deep foundation! The Buddhist Arch and the others were shocked. They did not dare to fight the 3 mountains head-on. They left 2 emperors behind to cover the retreat. The others were enveloped by the Buddhist Thearcha's sleeve and chose to retreat. It was because there was no need for them to fight now. In a few more days, when the emperors of the greater thousand world descended, the 3 mountains and 5 seas would not be enough. That old bald donkey kept his promise. Jiang Qin saw this. When the Buddhist Tharch and the others retreated, he did not forget to bring Jiang Lu and the others with him. At this point, the group of people around Jiangchun had almost all left. At least there was a place for them to go. Speaking of which, the Buddhist Tharch and the others have left. Then, how are we going to go to the greater thousand world? After a few breaths' time, Jiangchun suddenly realized a very serious problem. The six realms were too far away from the greater thousand world, and there was no map. If they rashly went there, it was easy to get lost in this boundless starry sky. They might not meet a living being for a few years, 100 years, or even 1,000 years. There will be a way. Old Jiao, who was standing beside Jiang Chun, sighed. There was a trace of sadness in his eyes. The six realms are really going to be gone. Perhaps, without waiting for the emperors of the greater thousand world to descend, the six realms will be destroyed, Old Jiao said. You mean, the five seas will destroy the six realms before the emperors of the greater thousand world descend? Jiangchen asked. Since they have appeared, it is the beginning of a turmoil. Even if the five seas do not have the intention to destroy the six realms, under this turmoil, the six realms will not be able to withstand it and will eventually be destroyed. Old Jiao sighed. After saying that, Old Jiao's eyes turned red. He held Jiangchen's shoulder and said, I do not have any extravagant wishes. I have lived my life and become an emperor. I am satisfied. I do not want to leave this place. This is my home. Old Jiao said seriously. There was a trace of determination in his sadness. If I die in battle, please treat the 9 heavens layers well. If possible, please help my 2 sons. Old Jiao said, the 9 heavens layers, 9 depths and 9 depths will be handed over to you from now on. Chapter 1065. The 3 mountains and 5 seas had appeared, and the world was already in chaos. Even the emperors of the upper-class world had temporarily retreated. At this moment, the emperors of the 5 seas were confronting the emperors of the underworld, and a great battle could break out at any time. On the other side, the emperors of the 3 mountains stood in the air as if they were watching a show. They didn't take any action, as if they just came out to take a look at the world. And in the other places in the world on the horizon, Zishao stood at the peak of the mountain and looked at the intersection of yin and yang with a trace of helplessness and sadness in his eyes. He knew that this life should have come to an end. He had become an emperor a long time ago, standing tall in the ancient and modern times, and could be said to be invincible. Even the most powerful divine emperor clan did not dare to be too presumptuous in front of him. The existence of the horizon was a kind of balance in the world, a kind of restraint. They adhered to the will and principle of balance, maintaining the stability of the 9 heavens divine realm. But now, this stability was about to be broken. Zishao was very uncomfortable and helpless. If he could take that step and become a transcendent, not to mention the divine realm, the other 5 realms would not be destroyed, and the 6 realms would have long been unified. If that was the case, how powerful would the 6 realms be? They would not even be afraid of the upper-class world. And all of this was because the 6 realms did not have a leader. Sigh. In the end, I couldn't let go of the thoughts in my heart. My obsession was too deep, and I couldn't take that step. Zishao sighed, and his words carried a sense of self-blame. Beside him, the dean of the Glory World Academy, the gray-haired old man, narrowed his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. After a few breaths, the gray-haired old man opened his mouth and said, Master, is the destruction of the 6 realms already unstoppable? There was still a glimmer of hope, but those coordinates have been sealed. It's too difficult for the ancestors to return. Zishao said, Too many coordinates have been sealed. Then what should we do? The gray-haired old man asked again, but his eyes flickered with determination. It was because the gray-haired old man knew what to do next without Zishao saying it. At this moment, Zishao straightened his hair crown and said softly, Back then, Master gave me this hair crown and told me that a person is like a crown, and that it has to be straightened. Straighten not only yourself, but also the world and the great Tao. Zishao said seriously, Now perhaps it's time to straighten it. This subordinate understands. The gray-haired old man nodded and bowed to Zi Shao. He said, I should go and prepare. It's time to light up the last fireworks of the 6 realms. Go, Zi Shao said softly. Within the Pingtian clan, there had always been very few people in the Pingtian clan. There were never more than 10 people in total. At this moment, everyone from the Pingtian clan had gathered in the hall. Luotian was present as well. He had already married into the Pingtian clan and was living quite well. The Pingtian clan did not suspect his gender at all. After all, the Pingtian clan was very powerful. No one dared to lie to them. As a result, they never expected Luotian to be a man. As a cultivator, the higher their cultivation, the more they paid attention to cultivation and the great Tao. As for the matters between men and women, it was just a matter of status. As a result, Luotian was still pure even after marrying into the Pingtian clan for so long. He had not consummated his marriage with the young master of the Pingtian clan, so naturally, no one knew his gender. We discussed it. Little 8 will take Luotian away from here and head to the great 1,000 world to preserve the last of our bloodline and legacy, the old man in the hall said. At this moment, the old man sitting at the front of the hall spoke. His tone was calm, but it gave off an irresistible feeling. He was the ancestor of the Pingtian clan, Ping Yi. The Pingtian clan was ranked according to seniority, from 1 to 13. They were all named by numbers. When the Pingtian clan was at its most glorious, there were a total of 13 people. Every single one of them was an expert. But now, there were only 8 of them left. Lil 8 was the youngest person in the Pingtian clan, the young master. Great-grandfather? Is that really it? Is there no way out? Beta Heike frowned. She was unwilling to accept this. The Pingtian clan was so powerful that they stood proudly throughout history. They could even stand up to the world. But now, the Pingtian clan was powerless against the current situation. They could only choose to continue their bloodline so that the Pingtian clan would not be completely destroyed. As for the rest, they would do their best and leave the rest to the heavens. Of course, the Pingtian clan had never believed in the heavens. Otherwise, they would not have slain the 3 heavens back then. The final battle is about to begin. Ping Yi sighed. Ever since our Pingtian clan was founded, we have been the most powerful clan in the 6 worlds. There is no other. We've been glorious before. That's enough. Us old fellows slain the 3 heavens for the sake of the 6 worlds back then. Now, it's time for us to do something for the 6 worlds again. Ping Yi seemed very old, but he was very energetic. His vital energy was extremely exuberant. After all, Ping Yi was the core force when they slain the 3 heavens. Back then, Ping Yi was just a step away from transcending. Unfortunately, he was injured when he slain the 3 heavens. Cracks appeared on his foundation, which was why he was unable to transcend even after so many years. Now, there was no more time. Great-grandfather, what should we do now? Ping Yi asked. His cultivation had long reached the Emperor realm. His foundation was extremely deep. As he spoke, the vital energy in his body surged like a blood dragon. This is the world of the living. Ping, he said seriously. The world of the living should be ruled by the living beings of the world of the living. Understood? Honored one. Boom! At the same time, a terrifying battle had already erupted at the intersection of yin and yang. The emperors of the 5 seas had all moved out. There were more than 30 of them. Moreover, there were a few fake emperors who had attacked as well. They fought to the death with the emperors of the netherworld at the intersection of yin and yang. At the same time, figures flickered on the other side of the netherworld. Emperors constantly charged across the Luo River and entered the world of the living to participate in this battle. As time passed, more and more emperors appeared. All of them fought with all their might. Every single one of them was an emperor, an invincible figure of an era. None of them were willing to submit to the other. They fought as soon as they saw each other. They did not even want to waste time talking. 3 days later, this place completely collapsed and turned into nothingness. At the same time, after a series of battles, someone finally fell. The deputy Sea Lord of the Reincarnation, Sea was besieged by the 6 emperors of the Netherworld. He lasted for 3 full days before he finally could not hold on any longer. His skull was cut open, his soul was annihilated, and his body and Tao were destroyed. At this moment, the great Tao let out a sorrowful cry. A resplendent rain of light fell from the sky, but it was blood red. This was the cry of the heavens, the cry of the emperors. There was so much essence in the emperors' bodies. They took the great Tao, used the great Tao, and even nourished the great Tao after they died. A rain of blood fell from the sky, accompanied by divine light, sprinkling in every corner of the world. Those living beings bathed in the emperor's blood seemed to have received the favor of the great Tao. Some broke through in an instant, some were reborn, and some even became lords of gods in an instant. Chapter 1066. The imperial blood sprinkled down, nourishing the plants and trees. They grew and even gained sentience. The emperor was based on the Tao, and the replenishment was based on the Tao. The sky had long turned blood red. As the fluctuations and power of the great battle spread, the blood-red color was mixed with the colors of the rainbow. As time passed, more and more emperors fell. What fell from the sky was no longer a rain of blood, but a waterfall of blood. The blood carried divine light, the laws of the emperor, and the power of the great path. It watered every inch of land in the 6 realms and fell on every place in the 6 realms. Everything was growing, and the cultivators' cultivation bases were soaring. Some people looked up at the sky and felt very upset. The 6 realms were about to be destroyed, and they were about to die. What was the use of increasing their cultivation base now? Unless their cultivation base reached the emperor level and could travel through the starry sky, they would die in the vast starry sky even if they escaped the 6 realms. To these people, the increase of their cultivation base was meaningless. At the same time, they were also puzzled. Why didn't the emperors leave at this time? They had the strength to leave this place, cross the starry sky, and head to the upper-class world. As an emperor, he would be able to live wherever he went, and he would be able to live very well. What are they doing this for? Some people sighed. They felt that whether it was the 3 mountains or the 5 seas, the battle at this moment was meaningless. At the same time, some people were puzzled. Why did the emperors of the netherworld still attack the mortal world when the 6 realms were about to be destroyed? After all, the person that the netherworld wanted to find was no longer in the mortal world. Do you know why those people can become emperors? Perhaps before they became emperors, some of them were not as talented as you, but in the end, they were the ones who could become emperors. It's because every emperor has a firm heart, a belief that will not be destroyed by anything. They persevere. Perseverance makes them invincible. Only by being invincible can they prove their Tao. An old senior was teaching his disciple, but as he spoke, he cried. This was the era of blood. No one could survive, no matter how much he knew and how many disciples he could teach. What was the use? It was too late. An ignorant youth blinked and told his master seriously that he could also strengthen his heart and prove the invincible path of the emperor. But I understand. The hearts of the emperors of the underworld are invincible. To put it simply, they want face. Someone came to a sudden realization and said, if they retreat, it's equivalent to breaking their own beliefs. Once the Tao heart is broken, the monarch realm will also be shattered. I see. How laughable. In the end, this group of people are actually fighting for the sake of face. Many people smiled bitterly, truly unable to understand. Because they were not emperors. They did not understand the heart of an emperor. What is a flourishing age? In reality, we all misunderstood. Someone released a long sigh. His entire body was surrounded by emperor blood. Even if he didn't deliberately cultivate, his cultivation was still rising. At this moment, quite a few creatures came to this realization. They suddenly understood that the so-called flourishing age was actually like this. The emperor has fallen, and the emperor's blood nourishes all things. This is the golden age. Every golden age signifies the fall of an emperor. Someone had revealed the truth. At this moment, many people thought of the rumor that a golden age was about to descend. Now that he thought about it carefully, these words actually came from the mouths of those top forces. And those forces all had emperors. Then, the truth would be revealed. Those emperors had long foreseen that in the near future, there would be a battle between emperors. At that time, many emperors would fall, and the emperor's blood would nourish all things. That would be the golden age. However, perhaps those emperors did not expect that this golden age would actually be a destruction. This is the golden age. At this moment, Jiang Qin stood at the back mountain of the Nine Skies imperial court, looking up at the sky and muttering. He was also bathing in the emperor's blood, and his cultivation was constantly increasing. At this moment, he had already broken through to the lower god realm. However, Jiang Qin quickly suppressed his cultivation and did not let it continue to increase. He stored the essence of the emperor's blood and sealed it in various parts of his body. He knew that it was not good for his cultivation to increase too quickly. His foundation would not be stable, and his Tao foundation would not be strong. He would not be able to walk far in the future. Only by slowly refining the emperor's blood and completely refining the power in the emperor's blood into his own would he be able to increase his cultivation. That was the right path. Those two children haven't returned yet. At this moment, Old Nine stood beside Jiang Qin, his face full of anxiety. He had been waiting for Jiu Shun and Jiu Yuan to return. But until now, there was no sign of them. If they don't return before the 6 realms are destroyed. Old Nine sighed and did not continue. Because everyone knew the consequences. 3 mountains. Are you just going to watch? The 3 mountains and 6 seas are one family. The East Sea has been destroyed, and now that the 5 seas have appeared, the 3 mountains are not going to make a move. 2 days later, as the battle became more and more intense, the 5 seas could not hold on any longer. That was because the underworld's foundation was too deep. There were constantly emperors rushing across the Luo River and entering the world of the living. Both sides had emperors falling, but if the situation continued, the 5 seas would really be destroyed. At this moment, the 3 mountains finally made their move. More than 10 emperors joined the battlefield and fought against the emperors of the underworld with the 5 seas. However, as time passed, the 3 mountains and 5 seas also showed signs of decline. There were more and more emperors in the underworld, and now there were more than 100 of them. If not for the fact that the emperors of the 3 mountains and 5 seas were extremely powerful, they would have been destroyed long ago. At this moment, there were less than 20 emperors left from the 3 mountains and 5 seas. In the sky, there was blood everywhere, and the corpses of emperors were everywhere. The sky there had long been cracked open and turned into nothingness. Even the aura of chaos had appeared. Everyone had gone crazy from the killing, as if they had been possessed by demons. They would not retreat until they died. Is everyone ready? At the same time, in the Pingtian clan, in the past few days, the people of the Pingtian clan had been adjusting their states. They had not fought for a long time and had been sleeping all this time, so they needed time to recover. But today, all of them had recovered to their peak condition. At this moment, under Ping Yi's lead, the 7 people of the Pingtian clan flew out of the hall. They were like 7 streams of light, rushing towards the intersection of yin and yang. This is the world of the living. This is the world of the living. Furious roars rang out one after another. The world saw the 7 resplendent beams of light, as if they were about to break through the eternal sky. With the addition of these 7 people, the side of the living that was originally at a disadvantage actually instantly gained the upper hand. At this moment, even the emperors of the 3 mountains and 5 seas were stunned. However, they soon discovered some clues. This was because the moment the 7 people of the Pingtian clan attacked, they were burning their own Tao fruits to ascend to the extreme. They were using their own lives to kill the enemy. Even if they won this battle, they would not be able to survive. Chapter 1067. The origin of the Pingtian clan's name was that they had once slain the three heavens. The higher the heavens were, the higher the worlds were. Back then, in a certain era, cultivators were extremely powerful. Their cultivation could even rival the heavens. However, where the heavens were, it was like a lid. The cultivation of the heavens was the peak of the cultivation of all living beings. If the heavens were still around, the cultivation of all living beings would never be able to break through their shackles. For the sake of all the cultivators in the world, a nameless clan had taken action. No one knew just how great of a price the Pingtian clan had paid back then. However, the Pingtian clan themselves knew. Back then, over 3,000 members of the clan had all sacrificed themselves. They had offered their essence, blood, and fruits of Tao to their ancestors. In the end, 13 of them had broken through their shackles and slain the three heavens. Over 3,000 people had been exchanged for 13 peak experts. They had also earned the name of the Pingtian clan. However, just how many people could understand the bitterness, blood, and tears behind all this? This time, apart from the young master, the other 7 members of the Pingtian clan had taken action once more. After this incident, the original family of more than 3,000 people would only be left with Ping Ba and his men for a very long time. However, the Pingtian clan had never regretted their actions from the beginning to the end. They were born as humans. Everything they did was for the sake of humans. Pingtian clan, although we really don't like you, we have to admit that you have guts. How dare you? After you die, the 5 Seas will not reincarnate for you. We hope to erect an eternal monument for you. The emperors of the 5 Seas felt their hearts tremble. They found it very difficult to imagine just what kind of willpower a clan needed to be willing to sacrifice so much for the world. Perhaps it was because they were born as humans. They were born as people of the 6 worlds. Kill. This isn't just the world of the living. It's the 6 worlds. At that moment, everyone had gone mad from the killing, especially the Pingtian clan. Every single one of them was terrifyingly powerful. They burned themselves to the limit and fought fiercely against the emperors of the underworld. Blood rained down endlessly. Some people bled, while others were killed. Not even a speck of dust remained. In the end, only 3 members of the Pingtian clan remained. However, the 3 of them were still fighting. They had no path of retreat, nor would they retreat. They had never thought of retreating. At that moment, the 3 of them stared at the attacks of the emperors of the underworld and arrived at the intersection of yin and yang. Then, the 3 of them looked at each other and smiled. Their bodies emitted an infinite amount of light. Taoist arts, order, runes, rules, everything was burning. There was a change at the point where yin and yang intersected. The crack seemed to be collapsing, but it also seemed to be healing. They're trying to cut off our escape route. Damn it. Hurry up and return to the netherworld. Lunatic. The mortal realm is full of lunatics. The living beings of the netherworld were in a complete panic. They didn't want to spend the rest of their lives in the Yang realm, especially when the Yang realm was about to be destroyed. At this moment, the emperors of the underworld retreated. They no longer lingered in the battle and fled to the intersection of yin and yang. They stepped across the Luo River and returned to the underworld. Underworld? What was this? If this old man wasn't injured, I would have transcended long ago. With my strength alone, I could have invaded your netherworld. Ping Yi's entire body was burning. His life force was weakening. Even his body was becoming blurry. However, his aura was still extraordinary, absolutely transcendent. He was the ancestor of the Pingtian clan. Since ancient times, if he dared to say that he was strong, no one would dare to say that they were stronger than him. Now, if he dared to say that he was alive, no one could kill him. But now he was still very strong, but he was about to die. This was his choice, as well as the Pingtian clan's choice. They didn't want to see their home invaded by a group of outsiders. They didn't want to see the land beneath their feet be tainted. They didn't want to see the living beings of the world suffer after they died. If there is an afterlife, I will fight for the living beings of the 6 realms again. It's over. Back then I killed the heavens. Today, I've retreated to the netherworld. I have no regrets in this life. The last three people of the Pingtian clan smiled. They stood at the intersection of yin and yang. Raging flames burned like three brilliant suns. The dazzling and brilliant light illuminated the entire nine firmament's divine realm. Everyone saw it. They were filled with grief, and they had nowhere to vent their hot blood. Someone roared. There was an indescribable sadness in his heart. He also wanted to fight to the death like the Pingtian clan. The 5 Seas salute the Pingtian clan. The 3 mountains salute you. The remaining emperors of the 3 mountains and 5 seas roared out. They cast aside their dignity as emperors and lowered their heads towards the 3 emperors of the Pingtian clan. They knew that if the Pingtian clan did not take action in this battle, the 3 mountains and 5 seas would definitely be destroyed. In the end, the emperors of the netherworld retreated. Over 30 of their emperors had died, leaving behind blood and corpses. The last 3 people of the Pingtian clan vanished before everyone's eyes as well, turning into a rain of light. Condense. Suddenly, the Sea Lord of the Sea of Reincarnation formed a seal with both hands. He used an incomplete secret technique of the ancient underworld to capture the souls of the Pingtian clan. He seemed to want to help the Pingtian clan undergo reincarnation. However, he gave up very soon. He felt even more powerless. This was because the Pingtian clan had burned away far too thoroughly. Not only had they burned away their fruits of ways, but even the origin of their souls had been burned away. Reincarnation, on the other hand, required souls. Even a fragment of a soul could be reincarnated. However, they really did not leave even the slightest chance for themselves. They had burned away everything they had for the sake of this battle. Your name shall be engraved in my 5 Seas Hall. Forever. The 5 Sea Lords of the 5 Seas had solemn expressions as they bowed towards the intersection of yin and yang once more. At this moment, the world was silent. After the great battle, all living things were bathed in the blood of emperors. However, it seemed rather bleak and desolate. The emperors of the 5 seas looked at the land with strange expressions. No one knew what they were thinking. The world thinks that my 5 seas want to destroy the 6 realms. But do you know that what my 5 seas want to do is not to destroy but to rebuild? All living things in the world can be reincarnated, and the people can be indestructible. This is the will of my 5 seas. Unfortunately, we were unable to achieve it in the end. Now, even our home is about to be destroyed. The emperors of the 5 seas sighed and sighed. The world did not understand them. Since ancient times, they had always thought that the 5 seas wanted to destroy the 6 realms. However, who would have known that every time the 6 realms were quelled, the 5 seas would be behind them? They had paid a great price for the 6 realms. However, even if the world misunderstood them, they had never explained themselves. This was because their wills were too strong and their aspirations were too great. They wanted the people of the world to live forever. We will return to this place in the end. Great 1,000 realms had just wait for our arrival. In the end, the emperors of the 3 mountains and 5 seas disappeared. On the same day, the entire East Sea rose into the sky. A huge space-time tunnel appeared, drowning the entire East Sea. At the same time, the 3 mountains and 5 seas were also inside. At this moment, the people of the world raised their heads and looked at the 3 mountains and 5 seas. They merged into the East Sea and entered the space-time tunnel, escaping into the distance. In the void, a person said, "If you can survive, don't forget that your true home is in the ancestral realm. We will expand your territory in the ancestral realm and wait for your return." Chapter 1068. The emperors of the underworld had retreated. The Pingtian clan had died in battle, and the 3 mountains and 5 seas had entered the space-time tunnel to head to the ancestral realm. At this moment, the entire 6 realms seemed to have fallen silent. There was not a single trace of life. Some people bathed in the emperor blood, and their cultivation soared, but they did not feel a trace of joy in their hearts. Some people looked up at the starry sky, curious about what the ancestral realm looked like. Even more people felt sorrow. They silently closed their eyes, waiting for death to descend. Everything seemed to have come to an end in extreme glory. The Golden Age had ushered in a great calamity. It was clearly a golden age, but in the end, it had become like this. No one could accept it, let alone face reality. However, this was the reality. It was too cruel. At this moment, Jiangchen stood on the mountain behind the Nine Skies Imperial Court. He narrowed his eyes as if he was thinking about something. Old Jiu had been by his side the entire time. His eyes were filled with anxiety. He had been returning from the Nine Depths and Nine Depths, but now there was no trace of him. No more waiting. It's time to report. Half a day later, Old Jiu suddenly spoke. A cold light flashed through his eyes, filled with determination and determination. After handing the key to the treasury of the Nine Skies Imperial Court to Jiangchen, he left without looking back. He had said everything he needed to say to Jiangchen. At this moment, he had no more attachments to this world. Jiangchen looked at Old Jiu's departing figure and could not help but ask, "Report? Where?" The Pingtian clan fought to the death. The 3 mountains and 5 seas have also left. Tell me, where else can I go now? Old Jiu smiled in a seemingly relaxed manner. Right now, all the emperors of the 6 realms have probably gathered there. The world's edge? Jiangchen exclaimed softly. Then he felt relieved. Yes, in the end, the world's edge will be the one to bear the final result. From now on, the world will belong to you young people. Old Jiu sighed. He took a step forward and disappeared like a streak of light. Jiangchen frowned. He had been considering whether he should leave this place or not. However, if he wanted to leave the 9 firmaments divine realm, he would not be able to cross the void unless he had the cultivation of an emperor. Moreover, Jiangchen was not willing to leave just like that. Although their real home was in the ancestral realm of the Great Thousand World, this place was also their home. This place was opened up by their ancestors. They had lived here for generations, and no one did not treat this place as their home. I'm unwilling to leave just like this. In the end, Jiangchen calmed down, not wanting to leave just like this. Even if they knew that the 6 realms would be destroyed, they still had to do something before that happened. After that, Jiangchen sat down on the mountain and released Tian Tsang's body. He formed a seal with his hands and began to fuse them together. As time elapsed, Tian Tsang turned into wisps of light. Together with the divine light, it entered Jiang Chen's body. At the same time, some fragmented memories appeared in Jiang Chen's mind. These images were not very complete, but they seemed to be recording a great battle. In the image, there was a blood-red coffin standing on a plain. The plain was very strange. It was even higher than the sky, as if it was above the heavens and beyond the 6 realms. Near the blood-red coffin, there were many figures, and each of them was filled with the mist of chaos and the great Tao. These figures surrounded the blood-red coffin as if they were waiting for something. Suddenly, the image changed. Jiangchen saw a stalwart man walk out of the river of time. His body was covered in fragments of time, and even the great Tao could not get close to him. As the man appeared, the figures around him began to slowly approach the blood-red coffin. However, the image suddenly stopped here. When the memory appeared again, the plain was still there, but the blood-red coffin was gone. On the plain, there were corpses everywhere. The living beings around the blood-red coffin were all dead. Only the stalwart man, who was dragging his half-crippled body, held an ancient badge in his hand and murmured a few words. At the end of the memory, the token shattered and turned into a rain of light. Then, Jiangchen saw Muyuda. After Muyuda appeared, he formed a seal with his hands and sent the stalwart man into a place of silence. The place was filled with the brilliance of the 6 realms, and there was a dark and endless path. Reincarnate. The current you is not you at all. In the end, Jiangchen heard Muyuda's words, and the memory disappeared. At that moment, Jiangchen came to his senses. He had fused with Tian Tsang's body, and his cultivation had reached the upper-level god realm. He was only one step away from becoming a tidal god. That's my memory? The memory when I was Tian Song? Jiang Chun frowned. He was very confused. When he was Tian Song, what exactly happened in that life? Why did Tian Song die? Could it be related to the blood-red coffin? Also, he seemed to know Muyuda during Tian Song's era. Muyuda also helped Tian Song during his reincarnation. So, what was going on here? Why did Muyuda help Tian Song? What was in the blood-red coffin? Why were those people all dead? The truth. I must find the truth. Jiang Chun felt that things were getting more and more complicated. Do you know that there is a blood-red coffin in this world? At that moment, Jiang Chun thought of the 9th princess who was lying in the sky-burying coffin. She had recovered to her peak, and her memory had also recovered. She must know something. After the 9th princess heard this, she was silent for a while and asked, which blood coffin? How many coffins are there in this world? Jiang Chun was stunned. He was confused by the question. I don't know. There have been blood coffins in several eras. Maybe it's the same one, or maybe it's different. The 9th princess was not sure. This was because there had been blood coffins in the history of the 6 realms. It seemed that they would appear in every era. However, there was no blood coffin in this era. Someone had speculated that every time a blood coffin appeared, the world would be in chaos. Blood would be shed, and corpses would form mountains. The blood coffin was said to be ominous, but no one knew what was in it. You're asking me about the blood coffin? Master, logically speaking, you should be the one who knows the blood coffin the best. The 9th princess suddenly reacted and said angrily, You were standing next to the blood coffin several times. Moreover, you were the only one who survived standing next to the blood coffin. Jiang Chun felt a headache coming on when he heard this. This was because he could not remember anything. But there's something I've thought of. The 9th princess said in a low voice, A long time ago, coffins were not used to bury people. Instead, they were used by the strong to rest and sleep. However, later on, there seemed to be a problem with one of the coffins. Something happened to the strong who was sleeping in the coffin. Since then, coffins were thought to be ominous and used to bury the dead. Chapter 1069. In the eyes of later generations, coffins were all ominous, used to bury the dead. However, a long time ago, when the primal chaos first opened, when Hongming sought Tao, coffins were similar to the beds of today. That was a place to rest, as well as a place where experts slept. According to legends, in that era, experts were as common as clouds. Every cultivator had the ability to overturn heaven and earth, to the extent where even the great Tao couldn't suppress them. That era was also chaotic. There were too many experts, emperors equaling the heavens, great battles erupting every day. The experts of that era often carried their own beds, which was also coffins, everywhere they went to battle. If they were tired, they would rest inside the coffin. If they died, they would lie inside the coffin. Moreover, in that era, every coffin was a type of identity, a type of symbol of strength. Every coffin was made from unmatched divine stones, immortal gold, as materials. There were even some coffins made from rare supreme treasures, like the world tree. Thus, in that era, those who had coffins all had great backgrounds, their strength great. If placed in the present, they would be invincible. However, just like what the 9th princess said, a great change happened in that era. There was a supreme expert sleeping inside the coffin, but something unexpected happened. As for what exactly happened, no one knew, as if it became a taboo, no one mentioning it. It was also from then on that coffins became ominous. Throughout the past and present, there were several famous coffins. For example, coffins made from the world tree, immortal coffins made from myriad immortal gold. There were even matchless coffins made from chaos stones. However, these coffins all had origins. All of their identities could be investigated. Only that blood coffin, unknown where it came from, suddenly appeared in this world. No one knew who the owner of this blood coffin was, but it would appear in every era. Some people guessed that there was more than one blood coffin. Some said that the blood coffin that appeared in every era was the same one, and each time a blood coffin appeared, it would trigger great chaos. When I was Tiansong in that era, I saw a blood coffin, Jiang Chun said softly. How strong was I in that era? That era, you were relatively strong, the ninth princess said. Compared to your first and second lives, you were clearly much weaker. HM, do you know about my first and second lives? Jiang Chun hurriedly asked. Of course I know, the ninth princess said, but she did not tell Jiang Chun. It was all because some things involved too many things, and the karma was too deep. It was taboo, and couldn't even be spoken about. Even emperors were afraid of that taboo. What's in that blood coffin? Is there a living creature buried there, or something else? Jiang Chun said in a low voice. The image of the bloody coffin kept appearing in his mind. He was terrified. However, Jiang Chun quickly calmed down the emotions in his heart and began to comprehend himself. Now, he had shed a lot of his spirit bodies, so much so that he had lost count. Furthermore, he was still shedding. As for the ribs in his chest, they had also undergone a huge change. It was like a tiger bone merging with a rose. Right now, a thistle flower bloomed, sparkling and resplendent. It carried divine light, and one could tell with a single glance that it was extraordinary. But the thing was, Jiang Chun still didn't know what the rose and the thorn flower were used for. The only use was that his physical body had become stronger. Perhaps I should ask Redcoat. Jiang Chun thought. With that thought, Jiang Chun did not hesitate. He stood up and headed to Chadi's sect. Half a day later, outside Chadi's sect. This aura, the moment he arrived, Jiang Chun's heart skipped a beat. He felt that the entire Chadi sect was shrouded by an extremely terrifying aura. This aura seemed to originate from an emperor, but it felt even stronger than an emperor. You're here. At this moment, Redcoat seemed to have sensed Jiang Chun's arrival. Dressed in a red robe, she appeared in front of Jiang Chun. It's been a long time. I'm here to see you. Jiang Chun's old face blushed slightly. Every time he thought of the time when he was cultivating in Chadi's sect, he felt strange. At that time, Jiang Chun's yang qi was too strong, and he needed to vent it. But Redcoat actually, at this moment, Jiang Chun did not know how to address Redcoat. After all, when Jiang Chun was Tian Chun, he could be considered Redcoat's master. Are you still not leaving? Redcoat asked. Her expression was calm, without a trace of joy, anger, sorrow, or joy. However, it was obvious from her tone that she cared about Jiang Chun. Not for now, Jiang Chun said. I want to see more of this world. I feel like I won't be able to see it for a long time. Then take a look. Redcoat nodded. Then, she handed a jade slip to Jiang Chun and said, This is what you wanted. This is? Jiang Chun asked. Have a fierce tiger in your heart sniff the rose. Your tiger bones gave birth to a rose. This jade slip contains the method to use the rose. Redcoat said. With that, Redcoat looked at the sky and said softly, There's not much time left. It's time to do what you want to do. Then, without waiting for Jiang Chun to react, Redcoat suppressed Jiang Chun and sealed his cultivation. Jiang Chun was shocked and asked hurriedly, What are you doing? Doing what you want to do, Redcoat said with a faint smile. Looking at Redcoat's smile, Jiang Chun's heart skipped a beat. He seemed to have understood something. About 10 breaths later, in Redcoat's room, in excruciating Earth sect, Jiang Chun's face was flushed red. He curled up in bed and said weakly, I say, do I have to use force? There's no need to use force. You won't be willing anyway. Redcoat said. Her face was flushed red, and her soft body burrowed under the bed. Wait, this time, let me do it. Jiang Chun was convinced and decided to be a real man for once. Bang! However, a muffled sound came from under the bed. Jiang Chun was hit by Redcoat and fell onto the bed. Just lie down. The spring breeze drizzled and the thunder roared. 100 spring night. The next day, Jiang Chun's face was pale. He stood at the door of Redcoat's room with one hand on the door frame and the other on his waist. He did not expect that even with his cultivation, He would almost not be able to withstand it. Damn it. Don't say you're invincible in the future. Red Coat smiled. Look at you. You can't even walk properly. This has nothing to do with being invincible. Jiang Chen's face turned red. All right, go. Excruciating Earth sect can't keep you any longer. Red Coat said, and straightened Jiang Chen's clothes. There was a trace of bitterness and helplessness in her eyes. Perhaps we won't be able to meet again in the future. Why? Jiang Chen asked. Hearing this, he did not know why, but he felt disappointed. The ancestors of excruciating Earth sect are about to return. Red Coat said, it may disappear. Ah? Disappear? What does that have to do with the return of the ancestors? Jiang Chen was dumbfounded. Red Coat did not say anything and shook her head. Her slender hand caressed Jiang Chen's cheek. Her eyes were watery as she said softly, in this lifetime, will you remember me? Yes, I won't forget, Jiang Chen said seriously. Chapter 1070. Jiang Chen left. He didn't leave on his own. He was forcefully sent away by Hong Yi. Hong Yi told Jiang Chen that the Chadi sect had changed. Everything would change, including her. Hong Yi said something inexplicable. She, who usually didn't show her emotions on her face, actually had red eyes this time. Jiang Chen didn't know what was going on. He only knew that Hong Yi was very sad. Everything will change? At this moment, Jiang Chen returned to the Jiutian Imperial Court. He thought about Hong Yi's words and practiced the technique she gave him. Time also slowly passed by. After an unknown period of time, perhaps 1 day, 3 days, or 10 days. On this day, the stars in the outer realm suddenly lit up like a blazing sun. The entire outer realm seemed to be very bright. However, on this day, the living beings of the 6 realms were in complete despair. It was because the stars that suddenly lit up in the outer realm weren't real stars, but emperors. Looking around, those emperors were as numerous as the stars. Each of them was extremely powerful and emitted an extremely terrifying aura. The emperors of the great wide world had descended. Are there 3,000? I'm afraid there are more than that. Is this the foundation of the great wide world? Thousands of emperors. Everyone sighed and lamented. Facing such a number of emperors, how could the 6 realms resist? Obviously, the 6 realms were destined to be destroyed. At the same time, somewhere in the Jiutian divine realm, the ground suddenly cracked open. Gravel shot out, and there was even the order of laws burning. Looking carefully, there was a void under the ground. Under the void, there was actually a foreign battlefield. At the same time, the world also saw the legendary ancient city, the Eternal Fortress. However, the Eternal Fortress had already collapsed. Most of the living beings in the city were dead. Only a few emperors were still alive. Jiang Chen also saw it. His gaze focused, and through the void, he wanted to find the Xian clan, the Desolate God, and the others. However, the reality was so sad. After searching the entire Eternal Fortress, he only saw ruins everywhere and a few corpses. At this moment, Jiang Chen's heart was filled with grief. When he ascended from the Eternal City to the 9th firmament, he still remembered Xian Qing saying that she would accompany him in battle again in the future. Qing Kong I and Qing Kong Confucian of the Qing Kong clan had also disappeared. Even some of his old friends from the Central State Dynasty had disappeared. Jiang Chen knew that they had all died in battle. The collapse of the Eternal Fortress was enough to explain everything. This is the way of the world. Jiang Chen let out a long sigh, unwilling to accept this reality. However, reason told him that everything was real. Jiang Chen smiled bitterly. He told himself that he should have expected this day to come. Eternal City that had stopped the other side for several eras still collapsed in the end. Greetings, emperors! Greetings, emperors! A dozen or so breaths later, figures could be seen everywhere, only to see countless creatures fly over from the other side. These were all foreign creatures. No, to be precise, they were originally creatures of the Great Thousand World. Several eras ago, they were sent to the other side by someone with a great divine ability. Now, they had broken through the eternal fortress and met up with the emperors of the great thousand world. However, even if the eternal fortress did not collapse today and the creatures of the other side did not appear, the six realms would still be destroyed. Old Gray, fix my crown. At the same time, on the horizon, Zishao stood at the peak of the mountain. Behind him were all the emperors of the ninth firmament who were still alive. These emperors had never left. They held on. Even if they had enmity with each other in the past, they had put it down at this moment. They stood together and looked at Zishao in front of them. In addition to grief and sadness, there was more passion and fighting spirit, as well as a kind of unyielding will. They were all emperors, so why was the great thousand worlds so high and mighty? It's time to show our weapons. Let's move around. This is the last battle of our lives. Many emperors said with a smile, looking very relaxed. Some people were teasing him, while others had smiles on their faces, looking cynical and cynical. At the same time, some people's eyes were filled with killing intent. At this moment, the gray-haired old man walked in front of Zishao. There was a trace of kindness in his turbid eyes. The gray-haired old man was nameless, but he was Zishao's protector. Before Zishao became an emperor, this gray-haired old man was his everything. The moment Zishao became an emperor, the gray-haired old man's mission was completed. From then on, he put down his identity and changed Zishao to be his master. At this moment, the gray-haired old man stretched out his skinny hands and wiped them on his clothes, as if he was afraid that his hands would dirty Zishao's crown. Zishao looked at the gray-haired old man's actions. He did not say anything, nor did he stop him. Even the group of emperors behind him looked serious when they saw this scene. They all knew that the world's edge was the one who maintained the balance of the six realms. They also knew that Zishao's crown was the will of the world's edge. One must be upright. Be upright. Be upright. Be upright. When I became an emperor god, I recognized you. I watched you walk step by step until you became an emperor, the master of the world's edge. Thinking back, it seems like it was only yesterday. The gray-haired old man spoke softly. It was as if he was wiping his hands clean. Then, as he spoke, he placed his hand on Zishao's crown and gently moved it. He tidied up Zishao's hair and fixed Zishao's crown. In the end, the gray-haired old man slowly knelt. He raised his hands to the sky and said softly, "May the master of the world's edge, Zishao, die. May the master of the world's edge die. May the master of the world's edge die." At this moment, the disciples of the world's edge shouted. Their voices were like war drums that shook the clouds. Die. That's right. That's right. This battle was a battle to the death. Upright. At this moment, Zishao's aura rose explosively. Divine light lingered around his body, and 10,000 strands of purple aura rushed out from the boundless void. At this moment, in the far east, the Dongfang imperial clan's emperor stood before his own mountain gate. He looked to the direction of the world's edge and said with a light smile, "Zishao, in the end, I fulfilled your wish." After he finished saying those words, the Dongfang imperial clan's emperor looked to the orderly row of clansmen behind him and asked, "Do you have any complaints?" "No complaints, no regrets. No complaints, no regrets." Over 1,000 clansmen from the Dongfang imperial clan knelt on the ground. Then, one by one, they began to burn themselves. In the end, the Dongfang imperial clan's emperor also began to burn himself. The entire Dongfang imperial clan was sacrificing themselves. After a dozen or so breaths of time, the Dongfang imperial clan disappeared. At the same time, a strand of purple aura came from the east. It pierced through the sky and landed on Zishao's body. "Zishao, this old man is old. I cannot fight anymore. Today, I shall end my Dongfang imperial clan and send you purple aura from the east. With the will of our Dongfang imperial clan, kill him to your heart's content. In the void, The crowd seemed to have heard the voice of the Dongfang imperial clan's emperor. He had died. He had sacrificed himself. He had also sacrificed the entire Dongfang imperial clan. A strand of purple aura came from the east. It landed on the world's edge and entered Zishao. Chapter 1071. At that moment, all living things in the world were shaken. One had to know that the Dongfang imperial clan had always been an imperial clan. This clan had a very deep foundation. Furthermore, the emperor of the Dongfang imperial clan was full of vitality and was in his peak state. Yet he still chose to sacrifice himself and his entire clan to help Zishao. He knew very well that if he wanted to fight against the great Thousand Worlds emperors, someone had to stand out. That person had to be invincible and be able to fight against 100 or even 1,000 people. In the current divine realm of the Nine Heavens, Zishao was the only one who could do that. For the sake of the human race. Sigh. We were born as humans. Many people sighed. Even the emperors were moved. They were thinking about the Dongfang imperial clan's emperor. At that moment, the Outer World's emperors had yet to arrive. They seemed to be waiting for something. Of course, to them, there was no difference whether they arrived earlier or later. The destruction of the Six Realms was only a matter of time. How interesting. In this era, the monster race and the human race will join hands. At that moment, in the west of the divine realm of the Nine Heavens, that was the territory of the monster race. Thus, the monster race of the divine realm of the Nine Heavens was also known as the Western monster race. At that moment, an extremely arrogant voice sounded. A boundless monster chi covered the sky and rose from the west. In a few breaths' time, it landed on the horizon. Upon closer inspection, it was a man with black hair. He was very tall and sturdy. His pupils were vertical, and his monster chi was soaring into the sky. Western Monster Emperor. Basya, I didn't expect you to still be alive. Everyone was moved. They were deeply afraid of this man. Back then, the Western monster race had caused chaos in the divine realm of the Nine Heavens. They had almost destroyed the human race and unified the Nine Heavens. At that time, the one who had caused the chaos was this man. His original form was Basya. He was shaped like a turtle and was born with boundless strength. At that time, if it wasn't for the previous master of the horizon, the monster race would have been the master of the divine realm of the Nine Heavens. At that moment, Basya snorted coldly. He looked at everyone provocatively and said, "What? Do you want to fight me?" We all know the strength of the Western Monster Emperor. Someone laughed. "What? Do you want to join hands with the human race?" Bullsh *T. Basya refuted. "I'm fighting for the demon race. You humans are not the only race in the Six Realms. We monsters are also part of the Six Realms." Nice words. I hope you won't run away later, someone mocked. Basya wasn't angry when he heard that. Instead, he looked to the west and said softly, "It's about to end." "Yes, it's about to end." Zishao nodded. He looked towards the group of emperors and foreign creatures and said, "They are waiting for someone." "Who? Who are you waiting for?" "A group of emperors, thousands of people. Could it be that they are afraid of someone?" Quite a few people were puzzled. Those were several thousand monarchs. So, could it be that they were still afraid of the immortal realm? "Wait for the protectors," Zishao whispered. "When the protectors are exhausted, it will be the time for them to attack the continent of the Nine Clouds." When these words came out, everyone suddenly came to a realization. At this moment, the group of emperors discovered that a layer of sparkling sand had appeared in the outer realm at an unknown time. The sand surrounded the entire God realm like a rotating galaxy, protecting the God realm. And in the sand, an old man could vaguely be seen sitting there, holding a fishing rod as if he was fishing for something. The protectors of the Six Realms. The fishermen, everyone exclaimed. The world was even more amazed that there was such a person in the world who could block the group of emperors alone. However, many people were even more puzzled. Why didn't such a powerful person make a move before? "Farewell, protectors." At this moment, Zishao lowered his head and bowed to the fisherman across the void. Everyone was confused and looked at all of this in a daze. The protectors seemed to have heard Zishao's voice. Sitting cross-legged in the vast sand, he slowly turned around and nodded at Zishao with a smile on his face. At the same time, the group of emperors stared at the fisherman. There was only fear in their eyes. They had always known that there was an extremely powerful emperor in the Six Realms who was the protectors. His identity was extraordinary, and his strength was so strong that he was almost about to transcend. Moreover, this person controlled the Tao of the Six Realms. Once he made a move, his power was so great that even the emperors would find it difficult to resist him. However, for the group of emperors today, no matter how strong the protectors were, they couldn't do anything. With thousands of emperors gathered, unless they were transcendents, they would all die. I've waited for several eras, but he still hasn't returned. The fisherman sighed. There was a trace of disappointment in his eyes, and he was even more puzzled. Could it be the rumors are true? That guy lied to me? The fisherman frowned. He didn't know who he was. However, Zishao was very clear. He knew some things about the past, and also knew who the person the fisherman was talking about. Even Zishao was puzzled. Logically speaking, that person should have returned in this era. However, now that the Six Realms were about to be destroyed, there was still no trace of that person. Could it be that that person had an accident? I'm an old man, and I don't want to fight anymore. Let's leave hope to the young. Half a day later, the fisherman sighed. His voice was ethereal and illusory, as if it had merged with the Tao. His body was disappearing, turning into a rain of light and dissipating with the flow of the void. However, the rain of light did not completely dissipate. Instead, it pierced through a void tunnel and formed a door on the ground of the Nine Heavens' divine realm. An incense stick's worth of time, the fisherman whispered. After saying this, only a wisp of remnant soul was left in his body. At this moment, the creatures of the Nine Heavens' divine realm were excited. They looked at the door. That was the path to the upper-class world. This was a path that the fisherman left for the people of the world with the Tao of the Six Realms, as well as his own Tao fruit and essence. However, the exact coordinates of this path were unknown, and it only had an incense stick's worth of time. If they couldn't enter this door within an incense stick's worth of time, then the remaining people would be destroyed together with the Six Realms. At this moment, the people of the world ran wildly. Some people roared, some people mourned, but most of them dared to move and were happy. As long as they stepped into the door within an incense stick's worth of time, there was hope for survival. As for how they would fare after entering the upper-class world, whether they could survive safely or not, that was another matter. But at least at this moment, they had hope. You don't have to be like this. Our upper-class world embraces all living things. As long as you obediently hand over the corpse of the invincible expert, we can let the creatures of the Six Realms go. We can guide them into the upper-class world and treat them well, an emperor said. However, when these words fell into the ears of everyone, it was like a fart. It was laughable. The blood of the ancestral realm flows in our bodies. You can't wait to break open our bodies, break down our souls, and search for the secret of invincibility hidden in our bloodlines. The guardian said contemptuously, treat them well? Heh, I think it's like keeping animals, right? Raising them like livestock to achieve your invincibility? Chapter 1072. The bloodlines of the Six Realms originated from the ancestral realm, and the ancestral realm hid the secret of invincibility. Of all the worlds, only the ancestral realm had produced an invincible being. Someone had deduced that it was impossible for the other worlds to produce an invincible being. Only the ancestral realm could. Back then, in order to understand the secret and become invincible, many races and worlds attacked the ancestral realm to obtain the true meaning of invincibility. In the end, the ancestral realm was destroyed and fell into darkness. The invincible being fought to the end and died in battle. However, the beings of the greater thousand worlds still did not let the ancestral realm go. They searched for several eras and finally found the burial place of the invincible being. Now, they were here. Not only did they want the invincible being's corpse, but they also wanted to raise the beings of the six realms and find the secret of invincibility in their bloodlines. At this moment, when the emperors heard the fisherman's words, they all looked indifferent and did not defend themselves. Because everyone knew what they were thinking, and as emperors, they were too lazy to explain. After all, their strength was there. Even if they robbed them openly, what could they do? For the sake of the Buddhist emperor, we did not make things difficult for the beings who were sent to the greater thousand worlds, but the other beings of the six realms. Humph! Invincible? Unfortunately, only one invincible being has appeared in the past thousands of years. As for you, you will be our pets, at our mercy, and you will have to curry favor with us. The emperor spoke in a very arrogant manner, and they did not treat the beings of the six realms as human beings. Many people were furious, and their eyes were filled with killing intent. They wanted nothing more than to tear the emperors from the greater thousand worlds apart. Some people are born kings, and some become bandits. The remnants of the ancestral realm are like that. Someone said contemptuously, "Not everyone is invincible, and you are not invincible, so you will all die. Are you worthy?" Suddenly, an angry roar came from the divine realm. At this moment, a skinny man walked out of a forbidden area. His body was as thin as firewood, and his blood energy was dried up. His hair was sparse, and it was obvious that he was in his twilight years. He was about to die, but he still had a breath left. At this moment, he was glowing, breathing in the chi of the great Tao and absorbing the chi of heaven and earth. His entire body was covered in divine light. A dozen breaths later, this person's appearance underwent a huge change. He had become younger. His hair was black and thick. His aura had reached the Emperor God realm. He's the Clear Sky God Emperor? It really is the Clear Sky God Emperor. He didn't die. He's been sleeping in the Forbidden Zone all this time. Many people saw him and cried out in surprise. They were extremely excited. One must know that in the history of the Nine Heavens divine world, Hao Tian God Emperor was a real God Emperor. He was praised by the people of the world, and he had suppressed several great disturbances in the past. However, in the end, it was said that the Clear Sky God Emperor was too severely injured and died. No one would have thought that the God Emperor of a generation was still alive. Moreover, right now, he recovered to his peak, daring to challenge a group of emperors. A mere God Emperor? He's just an ant. If he can't become an emperor, he'll just be a weed. The Emperor of the extraterritorial realm had a look of disdain. When he looked at Heavenly God Emperor, it was as if he was looking at a speck of dust. There have been many God Emperors in the six realms since ancient times. But do you know why only 3 God Emperors were able to establish forbidden grounds? An elder whispered, his eyes flashing with excitement. He said, "It's because of their strength." 3 God Emperors? Clear Sky, the female emperor, and the Poison God Emperor? A junior asked, compared to the other God Emperors, what's so special about them? You'll know soon enough. At the same time, in the other 2 forbidden grounds, there were also living beings walking out. One of them was an old woman with a head full of white hair, a hunched figure, and a face full of wrinkles. She also raised her head and looked at the group of emperors outside the realm. Then she opened her arms, and between her mouth and nose, rays of light were exhaled, and her body was covered in flames. After a dozen breaths, the old woman, like the Clear Sky God Emperor, underwent a shocking change. She became younger, like a 17 or 18-year-old girl. She was as beautiful as a fairy, unparalleled in her generation. She wore a green robe, and her hair danced in the wind. When she opened and closed her eyes, there were fragments of the great Tao floating. The female emperor, the emperor of all ages. Many people exclaimed, but some also thought of the other female emperor. Perhaps that female emperor was the real #1 female emperor of all ages. However, that female emperor rarely made a move. It was said that she had disappeared and was suppressed in the godless continent. At this moment, a short old man walked out from another forbidden ground. He grinned, and his laughter was very eerie, sending chills down people's spines. At the same time, his face and even his hair were purplish-black. It was very strange. The poison god emperor. Someone revealed the short old man's identity and was extremely fearful of him. Among the 3 god emperors, the poison god emperor had the worst reputation. However, at this moment, the poison god emperor had also exhaled rays of light, absorbed the essence of the sun and moon, and refined the power of the great Tao. He had recovered to his peak. At this moment, the 3 god emperors looked at each other across the void and smiled. Then, the 3 of them stood up and came to the edge of the world, standing side by side with Zishao. One had to know that the emperors of the 6 realms did not dare to stand side by side with Zishao. However, these 3 god emperors dared to do so. At this moment, among the group of emperors standing behind them, there were a few old monsters who had lived for several eras. They had strange expressions and frowned. They seemed to be thinking about something. After a few breaths, an old emperor coughed softly and broke the silence. Then he took a few steps forward and slowly lowered his body. He bowed to the 3 god emperors and said softly, "Greetings, 3 god emperors." "Oh, there are still people who remember us?" The poison god emperor raised his eyebrows and said mockingly, "You are an emperor. Why are you bowing to us, 3 god emperors?" You are real emperors." The old emperor hesitated and was even more puzzled. He said, "How did the 3 god emperors become like this?" "What? Emperors? When did the 3 god emperors become emperors?" Many people were puzzled. In their eyes, the 3 god emperors were indeed god emperors. "Before I became an emperor, the balance of this world was maintained by the 3 of them," Zishao said suddenly. "They are old. Now that they have ascended to the extreme, they have only recovered a few % of their past cultivation." "How many % of their cultivation are god emperors?" someone exclaimed. "Then if the 3 god emperors recovered to their peak, then they would really be emperors. Moreover, once they recovered to their peak, their strength would not be below Zizhao's." At this moment, everyone understood. No wonder the 3 of them dared to stand together with Zishao. The world calls us god emperors, so we accept it. The clear sky god emperor smiled amiably and said, "The world is vast, but the living beings in this world are the most important. Whatever they say is the truth." Chapter 1073. The appearance of the 3 great emperors and their meeting at the world's edge made the world aware of their true identities. At this moment, the world was filled with an oppressive aura, and an invisible battle intent was burning. Everyone knew that the real battle was about to begin. Everyone was waiting for this final incense stick's worth of time. When the guardians disappeared, when the star sand surrounding the 6 realms dissipated, it would be the time to fight to the death. "It's almost over." Jiang Chun stood on the back mountain of the Jiotian court, and the sky-burying coffin stood quietly beside him. He did not choose to leave because he did not want to leave just like that. Most importantly, there was one person he had not seen yet. She should have ascended, but where did she go? Jiang Chun frowned, worried about Yueshin. According to the news, Yueshin had indeed ascended to the barren state. However, after Yueshin was injured and escaped, there was no more news of her. Jiang Chun wondered if Yueshin had already gone to the Great Thousand World. Had she regained her memories? As he thought about it, the time for an incense stick to burn was finally up. At this moment, the star sand surrounding the 6 realms disappeared, and the doors to the Great Thousand World collapsed. The extraterritorial emperors shone brightly like stars, illuminating the starry sky. There's no need to say more. Just kill. The remnants of the ancestral realm want to use the power of the six realms to create a path of reincarnation and resurrect the invincible. Dream on. Today, they will be wiped out. From now on, the six realms will cease to exist, and the invincible will not be seen. At this moment, the extraterritorial stars fell. They were the emperors who broke through the sky. Their purpose was clear, and that was to attack the world's edge. They all knew that as long as the world's edge was destroyed, no one in the six realms could stop them. Kill. At this moment, Xia did not say much. She softly said the word kill and was the first to rush out. A purple cloud shot up into the sky, accompanied by numerous fists. They were like giant stars that shot up into the sky. Behind her, a group of emperors followed closely like tigers and wolves. There was only murderous intent in their eyes. They were no longer afraid of death. After all, when they chose to stay, they knew that they would definitely die in this battle. Kill. We, the creatures of the ancestral realm, are invincible. Boom! Boom! At this moment, there was a series of explosions in the sky. The void shattered in an instant. It was as if the sky had split open, and there was void lightning everywhere. Only a few dozen monarchs of the six realms rushed into the monarchs of the greater thousand worlds. They were like fireflies that emitted the most dazzling light before they were extinguished. In the blink of an eye, the monarchs of the six realms had fallen. They were surrounded by over 100 monarchs and couldn't even withstand a single strike. Many people saw this and immediately gave up on attacking. The eyes of the emperors of the six realms flashed with ferocious light. Their daos and laws turned into domains that enveloped many of the emperors of the great thousand realms. Then a shocking explosion was heard. The emperors had chosen to self-destruct. The power of the emperor could cut mountains, the power of blood could form seas, and the power of its self-destruction could crush the great daos of the six realms. For a moment, beautiful sparks bloomed in the sky. These were the explosions of the emperors of the six realms. This is really a golden age. The flesh, blood, and souls of the emperors are the most dazzling fireworks in the world. The fireworks cool down easily. After they bloom, everything will return to nothingness. The creatures who couldn't leave the six realms in time looked up with bitterness and helplessness in their hearts. If the emperors were like this, what could they do? They could only wait for death. If there's a next life, I'll kill my way into the great thousand worlds and wipe out all of your families. An emperor of the six realms roared. His face was red, and his hair was stained with the blood of the emperors. This person was extremely powerful. He fought more than 30 emperors alone. After killing 2 of them, he chose to self-destruct. For a moment, the fireworks became even more dazzling. Under the self-destruction of several emperors, the great thousand worlds suffered heavy losses. In just a dozen breaths, the great thousand worlds lost more than a dozen emperors. However, for the great thousand worlds with thousands of emperors, a dozen emperors were nothing at all. Even if it was 1 for 1, they could still win. Come here, surround, and kill this person. Suddenly, the emperors of the great thousand worlds exclaimed. Everyone turned their heads to look and saw a purple light killing everyone in the crowd. His methods were very simple. His fists and palms intersected, simple and unadorned. However, every move was a killing move. This person was Zishao. His battle prowess was already powerful to begin with. Now that he had obtained the purple chi of the Dongfang imperial clan, his battle prowess had become even more terrifying. He charged forward without the slightest pause. Wherever he passed, Emperor blood would fall. Beside him, there were already more than a dozen emperors of the great thousand worlds being killed. How dare you? There's an emperor like you in the 6 realms? Unfortunately, you are destined to die today. At this moment, over 100 emperors of the great thousand worlds rushed over. The group of people had fierce expressions as they charged towards Zishao. My name is true, my body is true, my crown is true, I am unparalleled in the 6 realms. Zishao roared. He was brave and invincible. Purple chi erupted from his body, like the most resplendent ray of light in the world. However, two fists were no match for four hands. In just half an incense stick's worth of time, his body was shattered. However, the Great Thousand Worlds also paid a huge price for this. Another dozen or so emperors were killed by Zishao. He was like an emperor who had turned into a demon. His killing intent was too fierce. The moment his body collapsed, Zishao directly burned his blood essence, and his body was instantly reforged. Then he attacked again. His fist and palm struck out horizontally, shattering the void. Even the great Tao trembled under his feet. At the same time, one could vaguely see a flower bud appearing above his head. The flower bud bathed in the great Tao and breathed in multicolored light, as if it was about to bloom. Not good. He wants to step into the transcendent realm with this battle. Someone cried out in alarm, and his expression changed greatly. As an emperor, what did Zhiao's current state mean? He was nourishing himself with battle, and at this moment, he was actually breaking through. Once the flower of the great Tao took shape and bloomed, it would be the day Zishao stepped into the transcendent realm. You won't have that chance. Suddenly, a cold voice came from afar. Then, a blood-colored dragon head spear shot out. The spear streaked across the void, carrying a sharp edge. It seemed to be indestructible as it directly pierced through Zhiao's forehead. Even the flower bud on top of her head had almost been shattered. Who can stop me? I'm invincible. Zishao roared angrily. He suddenly exerted force with both hands and pulled out the blood-colored spear from between his brows. Then his blood essence burned again, and his injuries instantly healed. Even the flower bud above his head seemed more real. How many of these 9 dragon transformation spears can you block? In the distance, the voice came again. Then, 8 blood-colored dragon head spears rushed towards Zishao. Chapter 1074. The dragon transformation spear landed and pierced Zhiao's body consecutively. There were also endless attacks from the emperors around him. It was as if they could topple mountains and overturn seas. At this moment, Zhiao's body trembled. Even though he burned his blood essence, he could not withstand the attacks. Boom! With a loud explosion, Zhiao's body exploded again. Even his soul was cut in half. The flower bud on his head dissipated, and his Tao fruit was damaged. You want to become a transcendent? Are you worthy? In the distance, the emperor with the dragon transformation spear had a mocking look on his face. When he finished speaking, the 9 dragon transformation spears gathered together and shone on Zhiao's incomplete soul like a beam of light. He almost became a transcendent. What a pity he still died in the end. Many people sneered, seeing half of Zhiao's soul crumble under the dragon transformation spear. The group of people's tense hearts relaxed. However, at this moment, a poisonous fog burst forth. Like a purple-black lantern, it gathered Zhiao's broken soul. Are you guys looking down on me? At this moment, the poison god emperor rushed over. Along the way, his entire body was burning. Even his Tao fruit was emitting a shocking divine light. By the time he reached Zhiao's side, Zhiao had already advanced to the extreme. He had burned his remaining lifespan and essence, and his cultivation had reached the emperor level. However, in the next moment, he did not attack. Instead, he turned into a poisonous fog that filled the sky. Then, the poisonous fog dissipated, and a bright star rune landed in front of Zhiao. I don't want to do it myself. Since I'm going to die anyway, I'll fulfill your wish. The poison god emperor's voice came from the star rune. He did not have any reluctance to leave this world. He directly transformed into Tao, condensing his entire body into this star rune, and then poured it into Zhiao's body. Thank you, poison god emperor. Zhiao's expression turned serious. He melted the poison god emperor's Tao fruit, and his injuries were instantly healed. At the same time, the flower bud on his head appeared again, and it became more solid. The light of the great Tao fell on his body like the sea, breaking through the void and falling. Stop him. This guy wants to transcend. The emperors from the great thousand worlds were panicking. They knew how terrifying a transcendent was. One person might be able to destroy their entire group. You can't do it. At this moment, the emperor with the dragon form spear attacked once more. This time his main body rushed over. 9 dragon transformation spears floated up and down beside him. As they shot out, it was as if a true dragon was roaring. The universe even began to reverse around him. He was very strong, and his attack was even more decisive as he slashed at the flower bud above Zizhao's head. Clang! However, before his dragonization spear could land, a snow-white fist slammed into the dragonization spear. Everyone came back to their senses and looked carefully. It was actually a peerlessly beautiful woman. If you were a transcendent, there would still be hope for the 6 realms, the Empress whispered. Her body split into thousands of layers of light and shadow, protecting Zizhao. As for her main body, after the extreme sublimation, she charged straight at the Emperor with the dragon transformation spear. A mere woman, even if she becomes the monarch, how can she enter my eyes? How can she contend against me? The monarch with the dragon transformation spear had a look of contempt on his face. One had to admit that this person was too strong. On one hand, he controlled the 9 dragon transformation spears to attack Zizhao. On the other hand, he fought fiercely with the Empress with his main body. At the same time, more emperors rushed over. Each of them had a monstrous aura. They were like a pack of tigers and wolves that were about to devour Zizhao. Haotian Divine Light. At this moment, the Haotian Divine Emperor had also reached the extreme sublimation. A ray of light shone down and enveloped Zizhao. Then a 7-foot green sword appeared in his hand. His body was like a butterfly's shadow, dancing in the void. The sword radiance burst forth like falling stars. Wherever it passed, no one could resist it. The leader of the 3 emperors, the Haotian Divine Emperor. As expected of Haotian, in the 6 realms, the living beings looked up at the sky and were extremely excited. However, in just a few breaths' time, the Empress was first sent flying by the Emperor and fell into the void with serious injuries. Then, the Haotian Divine Emperor was surrounded by thousands of people and finally chose to self-destruct. Their ultimate battle did not last long. Although they had reached the extreme sublimation level, they could not change their fates. Perhaps it was like a flash in the pan, but the world would remember it. The difference in numbers is too great. Sigh. In the end, it was all for naught. The world sighed. The 3 emperors were so powerful, but in the end, they died as soon as they fought. Actually, we should all understand that there was no suspense in this battle. The emperors of the 6 realms only dared to fight because they had too much affection and nostalgia for the 6 realms. They say that emperors are heartless. It's just that it's rare to see them cry. At this moment, almost all the emperors of the 6 realms were dead. This battle was completely one-sided. After all, the enemy had too many people. With thousands of emperors attacking at the same time, it was difficult to stop them even if one was peerless and had unparalleled combat strength. After a few breaths' time, many people stopped fighting and stood in the void with cold expressions. When they looked at Zizhao, their eyes were filled with fear and greed. If he has the ability to break through and transcend, his fruit of Tao must be extraordinary. If we seize his fruit of Tao, we might be able to take that step and become a transcendent. Many people were shocked and excited, and the greed in their eyes intensified. At this moment, Zizhao was still killing enemies while breaking through. However, there were too many enemies around him, and they seemed to be intentionally exhausting his strength. They didn't fight him head-on, but attacked him from the sides. There were even people who directly said that they were walking a dog. In the end, I can't do it. I'll let you down. Zizhao sighed. If there were only a few hundred emperors, he wouldn't be afraid and could even fight. Unfortunately, it was difficult for him to deal with thousands of emperors alone. Moreover, as time went on, he began to feel his strength falling short of his desire. His strength was rapidly depleting, and even the flower bud above his head dimmed. He knew that it was too difficult to break through to transcend. There was no hope left. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of something breaking through the air echoed throughout the 6 realms. A figure shrouded in ecliptic chi charged out from the back mountain of the Nunsuch court. Like a yellow dragon, he charged forward, resonating with heaven and earth. As long as I exist, the 6 realms will exist. Jiang Chen roared. He'd been waiting for this moment, and Huang Tian's strength had finally recovered once more. He charged out, disregarding all consequences. All he wanted to do was kill his enemies. Anger and resentment burned in his heart. But more than that, he was hot-blooded and eager to fight. Another emperor? It'll all end the same. The dragonization spear in hand was very powerful. He charged out, his spear piercing through the void and heading straight for Jiang Chen's head. Chapter 1075. None of the emperors moved. Only a small group of people were attacking Zishao. As for Jiang Chen, the group of emperors did not think much of him at all. This was because the emperor with the dragon materialization spear was too powerful. They believed that he alone could defeat Jiang Chen. Boom! However, as soon as they collided, the dragon-formed spear was instantly blasted into pieces, and even the emperor was blasted flying. What? The dragon materialization emperor was sent flying. That's the dragon materialization spear. It's an emperor weapon made from the bones of a real dragon. How did it shatter? Everyone was exclaiming in shock. Some of the emperors even took a step forward and were about to attack. Puny ant. I'll do it myself. The dragon materialization emperor's face was cold. He was embarrassed that he was sent flying by Jiang Chen in front of so many people. At this moment, he dashed out once again. The 8 remaining transforming dragon spears flew in the opposite direction. They formed a great killing formation that shrouded Jiang Chen. That's it, Jiang Chen said disdainfully. He knew that Huang Tian was extremely powerful. It would be easy for him to defeat the dragon materialization emperor. Indeed, Jiang Chen struck out with both of his hands and shattered all 8 of the dragon materialization spears. Then, before the Dragon Realm Great Emperor could react, Jiang Chen threw his palm over and hit the Dragon Realm Great Emperor's body hard. Boom! Along with a dull thud, the Dragon Materialization Emperor's body exploded, leaving only his soul behind. What? This is impossible. At that moment, everyone was exclaiming in shock. The Dragon Materialization Emperor did not even turn his head as his soul retreated backward. He finally realized that the Emperor, who was surrounded by the ecliptic energy, was not to be trifled with. He was extremely powerful. Still trying to escape? Jiang Chen shouted angrily. A pair of Huang Tian's wings appeared on his back like the wings of a Kuan Peng. With a flap of his wings, Jiang Chen was like a bolt of yellow lightning. In a flash, he had caught up with the Dragon Transformation Emperor. Then, Jiang Chen threw a punch at the Dragon Realm Great Sovereign before the group of sovereigns could react. He shattered the soul of the Dragon Realm Great Sovereign in front of everyone. Dead! This guy! Attacked together! At this moment, the surrounding emperors could no longer remain calm. One had to know that the Dragon Transformation Emperor was considered to be at the top of this group of people. But who would have thought that the Dragon Transformation Emperor would be killed just like that? Today, no matter how many come, I'll kill them all, Jiang Chen roared. Although he couldn't control his physical body, he still had to act tough. In the next second, Jiang Chen charged into the crowd. This Huang Tian's strength seemed to know no fear as he controlled Jiang Chen's body, punching and closing. However, there were too many of them after all. After a few tens of breaths of time, cracks had appeared on Jiang Chen's body, and even the space between his eyebrows had suffered a heavy injury. His soul trembled and was almost annihilated. Hey, do you have spirituality or not? I have the Emperor's Vine, the undying bird, and the ever-changing heavenly lamp in my body. Why don't you use them?" Jiang Chun was anxious as he cursed in his heart. He almost scolded Su Ke. He didn't know if Jiang Chen's words were effective or if this Huang Tian's strength really did have spirituality. After Jiang Chen's words, this Huang Tian's strength really summoned the three Taoist spirits. At this moment, the purple-gold vines pierced into the void. The vines were like flagpoles, and the leaves were like flags. As they swayed, the starry sky collapsed and stars in outer space were shaken off. At the same time, a few emperors were hit and exploded like fireworks. Even their souls were destroyed. Then, the undying bird let out a long cry as the immortal flame burned. The void cracked inch by inch. A few emperors couldn't dodge in time and were burned to death by the immortal flame. This is the Taoist spirit that is activated by the emperor's strength? Jiang Chen was shocked. He didn't expect his Taoist spirits to be so powerful. "Kill him, bastard! How dare you kill the emperors of the great thousand world?" Around him, a group of emperors roared. They were not afraid at all. That was because there were too many of them. However, when a group of people rushed over, they saw a green lamp appear above Jiang Chen's head. Then, a sword ray pierced through the void, as if it had cut open the ancient river and cut off time and time. Under the light and shadow, the sword ray passed through. Puff, puff. With a series of muffled sounds, dozens of emperors were killed by this sword ray. They didn't even have the strength to resist. "Oh my God! Is this the power of my ever-changing heavenly lamp?" Jiang Chen was excited. However, after the sword ray, Jiang Chen felt that the Huang Tian's strength in his body had weakened a lot. Obviously, using the Taoist spirits in succession consumed too much of his strength. Ever-changing heavenly lamp? How could such a Taoist spirit appear in a small place like the Six Realms? Many people exclaimed, and some people's eyes were filled with greed. As emperors, they knew many secret techniques. At this moment, someone wanted to seize Jiang Chen's Taoist spirit. "I'm going to start a massacre today." At this moment, Jiang Chen was not afraid. Although the Huang Tian's strength in his body had weakened a lot, it was still very strong. He rushed out again, and the purple gold vines around him burned with the immortal fire. There were also 3 wisps of chaotic chi that turned into sharp lights and rotated around him. Someone approached but was sent flying by Jiang Chen's palm. The 3 wisps of chaotic chi struck out and directly annihilated the other party. Chaotic chi? Who is this? Many people were shocked. An emperor with 3 Taoist spirits and chaotic chi. This was too extraordinary. "We can't let such a person live." Only then did the other emperors react. At this moment, thousands of emperors all attacked. Attacks fell from the sky like a storm. Not only was the void shattered, but even the 6 realms were collapsing. The power of emperors was too terrifying, not to mention the attacks of thousands of emperors. At this moment, Jiang Chen was deeply affected. His physical body exploded, but it was reconstructed in a very short time. He was still fighting, but he could feel that the Huang Tian's strength in his body was getting weaker and weaker. "Cough, cough, sister. That's enough, right? I don't want to die yet." Jiang Chen felt bitter. Previously, he was able to suppress the emperor of the Hualong dynasty, but now, he could not even withstand a palm strike from an ordinary emperor. He had used up too much energy, and he felt that he was going to be completely destroyed by the attacks of the emperors. Huang Tian's strength seemed to have a mind of its own. At this moment, it carried Jiang Chen and turned into a ray of light to escape. Where is he? Is he dead? Or has he escaped? At this moment, the emperors were dumbfounded. They had seen the surging ecliptic chi just now. How could it be gone in the blink of an eye? "Oh no! Something big has happened." Suddenly, someone exclaimed. When the emperors attacked Jiang Chen just now, they had neglected Zishao. At this moment, everyone came to their senses and saw that the flower bud on Zishao's head had bloomed and a petal had formed. Chapter 1076. The emperors of the six realms were like a flash in the pan. The war had only just begun, but they had already withered. It could not be said that they were too weak. It could only be said that there were too many emperors in the great wide world. It was difficult for two fists to fight against four hands. Even though Jiang Chun was possessed by Huang Tian's power, he was still beaten back. However, at this moment, the emperors from the great wide world became nervous. One by one, they rushed toward Zi Xiao as if they had gone mad. It was because Zi Xiao's Dao flower had already bloomed. Although only one petal had bloomed, the meaning of that petal was extraordinary. To transcend, one had to take a total of 3 steps. And with every step, the Dao flower would bloom a petal. Be careful. He has already taken a step. Kill. Don't let him transcend. At this moment, the emperors attacked without any hesitation. They did not attack from the side. Their attacks were like a storm, sweeping in all directions. The 6 realms were collapsing. The power of emperors could easily destroy the world. Ordinary people could not imagine it. At this moment, Zi Xiao sighed. He knew that in front of the emperors, he would not be able to take the remaining 2 steps. However, at this moment, it was enough for Zi Xiao. Master said that one must be upright and not forget one's original intention. Zi Xiao said softly. He adjusted his hair crown with both hands, and a hint of surprise burst out in his eyes. In the next moment, he rushed out. His entire body was burning. Even the Dao flower had turned into divine light and blessed his body. With a punch, it was as if an azure dragon had broken through the 9 heavens and descended. It was more like an upside-down galaxy falling. Wherever the fist passed, more than a dozen emperors were directly suppressed. They did not even have the chance to resist. So strong. He only took 1 step, and he already has such strength. Transcendence, everyone exclaimed. There were countless emperors here. They were invincible in the eyes of the world, but they knew in their hearts that if they did not transcend and become extraordinary, it would be difficult for them to be invincible. That was a crucial step. Since ancient times, how many emperors had been blocked before that step? They had spent their entire lives unable to step into it. Kill. This guy will be a disaster if we leave him alive. At this moment, the emperors had completely gone berserk. The 5-colored light filled the void. That was the strongest attack of the emperors. Zi Xiao did not retreat. His fists danced as he continued to kill his enemies. Cracks appeared on his body. His Dao foundation was damaged, and even half of his face was smashed. However, he never retreated. His fists danced, and his eyes were filled with determination and killing intent. This was his choice, and also his will. He didn't leave himself any way out. After all, with Zi Xiao's current strength, so long as he wanted to leave, then none of these emperors would be able to stop him. But he didn't want to leave. Everything had disappeared, but the will was still there. He wanted to fight until the very end and watch the 6 realms wither away. He wanted to see them turn into nothingness together with him. As a person of the 6 realms, he controlled the balance of the 6 realms. Even in death, he was the soul of the 6 realms, overlooking all living beings in the netherworld. I, Zi Xiao, have never been weaker than anyone in my entire life. In the end, Zi Xiao fought until he went berserk and the Dao flower shattered. He used his Dao fruit to form a domain that encapsulated over 100 emperors. Then, with a furious roar, it exploded. It had chosen to self-destruct. Hundreds of emperors died on the spot, and many people in the surroundings were implicated, suffering heavy injuries. However, this battle was finally over. The emperors of the 6 realms had all died in battle, and the entire 6 realms had been destroyed in this battle. At this moment, there was nothingness everywhere. There was nothing to be seen, not even a speck of dust. The power of the emperors was too tyrannical and terrifying. The aftermath of the battle destroyed everything. However, there was a person sitting cross-legged in this nothingness. It was a man with a blurry appearance. He sat cross-legged in the void with his back facing everyone. The emperor's battle fluctuations couldn't get close to him. Even the Tao wailed beside him. The invincible one. He's really in the six realms. At this moment, the emperors of the upper-class world were excited. They rushed over one by one, wanting to snatch the invincible one's corpse. One had to know that this corpse had not been damaged for thousands of years. Although the soul inside had died, the invincible one's Tao was still hidden in this invincible one's corpse. This corpse was like an ancient scripture that recorded the path and techniques of the invincible one. What six realms? It's just a burial ground. In the end, the six realms were destroyed like the ancestral realm. What invincible one? It's still destruction. Many people had looks of contempt on their faces, as if they looked down on the invincible one. However, they all knew in their hearts that they longed for the invincible one's Tao fruit. Among these people, a few had lived for several eras and experienced the great calamity of the ancestral realm's destruction. They had seen with their own eyes how powerful the invincible one was. He wasn't killed back then. Instead, he sacrificed himself to protect the living beings of the ancestral realm and left hope for the ancestral realm. If the invincible one didn't care about anything in that era and only cared about himself, then the upper-class world would have been destroyed. However, people were ultimately sentimental. The invincible one looked down on the past and present, but in the end, he still couldn't forget that feeling. Since ancient times, the word love has been the most difficult to understand. Goodbye. It's over. In the end, the emperors of the upper-class world left. They took the invincible one's corpse and stepped into the starry sky. At this moment, everything in the six realms had disappeared, leaving only ruins and nothingness. However, in the nothingness, Jiangchen carried the sky burying coffin on his back and quietly lay dormant. He had witnessed everything that had happened in the six realms. His heart was filled with resentment and resentment. But so what? No matter how much resentment he had in his heart, so what? Even Zi Xiao had died in battle. With Jiangchen's cultivation base, what could he do? I'm going to kill you. Suddenly, a furious roar came from the distance. Then, a man rowed a lone boat and rushed toward the ruins of the six realms. A terrifying aura spread in all directions, much stronger than that of the emperors. At the same time, two other living beings were rapidly approaching from several other directions. You sealed the ancestral realm and now destroyed the six realms? Damn it, we're still one step too late. More than 10 breaths later, two men and a woman appeared in the ruins of the six realms. Their eyes were filled with anger and grief, and killing intent surged from their bodies. Jiang Chun was hiding in the dark. Looking at these three people, he thought to himself, are these three people the legendary ancestors? They had returned, but it was still too late. Oh, there are still two realms. It's them. There's still hope for the six realms. There's still a seed. Suddenly, the three of them became excited. Their eyes shone brightly as they looked down into the nothingness. Jiang Chun also looked down when he heard that. Jiang Chun became excited as soon as he took a look at it. He saw that in the nothingness of the ruins, the place that originally belonged to the godless continent, there were two people standing there quietly. At this moment, their expressions were calm, without worry or joy. They seemed to have transcended everything, as if they had transcended the great Tao of the six realms. Chapter 1077. With the destruction of the six worlds, all of the worlds beneath them had been destroyed as well. And yet, in the ruins of the godless continent, there were two people standing there like statues. They were completely impenetrable, and even the great Tao couldn't affect them. They seemed to be deep in thought, or perhaps asleep. Even their auras were weak. However, upon closer inspection, one could sense that their bodies were filled with life force, so much so that it was comparable to an entire world. The human emperor? Taoist heavenspan? Jiang Chun couldn't believe that the two of them were still alive. As far as Jiang Chun was concerned, although the human emperor and Taoist heavenspan were mysterious and powerful, They weren't emperors. Since he hadn't reached the emperor realm, how could he survive in this war of the emperors? Of course, that was Jiang Chen's assumption. At this moment, after Jiang Chen had observed it for a while, he became serious. He thought to himself that he had made a mistake. So, they've always been emperors, Jiang Chen murmured, staring at the two of them. They had Dao fruits of emperors. Moreover, one could vaguely make out a Dao flower above their heads. The human emperor's flower had only one petal, but Taoist Heavenspan's flower had two. You've suffered, gentlemen. The two men and one woman approached the human emperor and Taoist Heavenspan and bowed respectfully. Taoist Heavenspan opened his eyes, but didn't say anything. He simply rubbed his chest. Then he frowned and said, "It's time to let them out." "You're right on time," the human emperor said, his expression unsightly. "You arrived after the destruction of the six worlds? Did you crawl back?" The three looked embarrassed, and one of the men hurriedly explained, "Human emperor, the ancestral realm is too far away. Even emperors can get lost easily. The coordinates we left behind in the six worlds are a bit blurry." The three of them explained, their eyes filled with anger and helplessness. Hearing this, the human emperor's eyes flashed fiercely. He looked at the ruins in front of him and asked in a deep voice, "How is the ancestral land?" "The ancestral realm is still the same." One of them sighed. "The ancestral realm has been cursed, and the living beings inside have changed. Many people died. Back then, a group of us went to the ancestral realm, but now less than a tenth of us are still alive." The woman sighed. "It's too difficult to break the seal of the ancestral realm. Those people from the Great Thousand World have been interfering. We've been fighting for several eras, but we still can't break the seal of the ancestral realm. Since they don't want us to open the ancestral realm seal, then I don't understand." Taoist Heavenspan said coldly. "Sealing the ancestral realm, destroying the six worlds, and now taking the corpse of the invincible one. What a kiliocosm of worlds." "Devil Emperor, you mean?" the woman asked. "If they want to fight, then let's fight." Taoist Heavenspan said coldly. "Wang." Even as the words left his mouth, Taoist Heavenspan plunged his hand into his chest. Then, a bright light shone out as he pulled his hand out, revealing a glowing sphere of light. When the five worlds were destroyed, the human emperor and I used our bodies as a pool to nourish two worlds. Taoist Heavenspan looked down at the sphere of light in his hand. "This is my world, the devil world of the five worlds." When Jiang Chen heard that, his expression turned serious, and his eyes filled with shock. The six worlds were divided into the god, immortal, mortal, demon, devil, and infernal. Jiang Chen could never have guessed that Taoist Heavenspan was actually a living being from the devil world. Furthermore, it seemed that after the devil world had been destroyed, Taoist Heavenspan had sealed it inside of himself. He had used his body as a pool to nourish the damaged devil world, in the hopes that one day he would be able to rebuild it. Furthermore, Taoist Heavenspan had said that this was his world. That meant that, like Mu Yud, Taoist Heavenspan was the ruler of the devil world. The mortal world is almost completely restored. At this point, the human emperor pulled a glowing sphere out of his body, which was actually a sealed world. Within that world were living beings, plants, vegetation, and even the magical laws of the great Tao. Clearly, the human emperor and Taoist Heavenspan had put in a lot of effort to restore the devil world and the mortal world. "We'll use these two worlds as races," Taoist Heavenspan said. "When the time comes, the six worlds will appear." "No, he should be called the Devil Emperor. It's a pity that the Emperor of the Dead, that old thing, abandoned his own underworld in order to find the so-called truth. I don't know where he is now." The human emperor said in a deep voice, "That guy has never done anything good." "Don't worry about him," the Devil Emperor said. "Let's put the mortal world and devil world into the great Tao and slowly nourish them." Using the magical laws of emperors, they unleashed the power of the world to unseal the two worlds and place them in the ruins of the six worlds. These two realms were like two seeds that had taken root in the ruins. In the future, they would spread out, and with these two realms as the center, it was possible for the six realms to reappear. I'm late. At this moment, a beam of light rose from the ruins of the six worlds. Then, a woman in a red robe walked out of the ruins. Around him, there was a rain of light everywhere. It was fiery red and gorgeous, and his body seemed to be covered with a layer of red star sand. Red robe! At this moment, Jiangchen exclaimed in surprise. He couldn't stay calm anymore. He walked out of the ruins and came to Red Robe's side. "Are you all right?" Jiangchen asked. However, he was taken aback. She looked at Jiangchen in confusion. Frowning slightly, she said, "Who are you? You don't recognize me?" Jiangchen was stunned. The woman in front of him was obviously Red Robe. "Oh, I know. You're just the coordinates I left in this world, right?" The woman explained. "The red robe, is the coordinates I left in this world. She's been waiting for me to return. When I returned, she disappeared." Jiang Chen's expression dimmed when he heard that. At this moment, he remembered what Red Robe said. So, Red Robe already knew his identity and knew that he would disappear. "She won't appear again?" Jiang Chen asked. "She didn't disappear because I am her and she is me," the woman said softly with a strange expression. She was searching Red Robe's memories, and her face was flushed red. She knew that she had deep contact with the young man in front of her. "Master!" Suddenly, a group of people rushed out from the ruins. At a closer look, the leader was a skinny old man, and behind him was a group of people. "Sect leader? Senior brothers and sisters?" Jiangchen widened his eyes and looked at the group of people behind the skinny old man. It was Katsura Matsuda and the others. Chapter 1078. Jiangchen widened his eyes. He thought that Katsura Matsuda and the others had already gone to the Great Thousand World. He did not expect them to still be here, and they were following behind a skinny old man with an extremely powerful aura. This person should be the ancestor of the sky-reaching school. However, after this group of people appeared, they went straight to the Demon Emperor. The skinny old man's face was full of excitement, but there was also a trace of guilt. He came in front of the Demon Emperor, bowed his head, and said in a slightly cold voice, "Disciple greets master." The Demon Emperor nodded and did not say much. Instead, his gaze fell on Jiangchen. "Why are you still here?" The Demon Emperor asked. I'm not willing to leave just like that," Jiangchen said, but there was bitterness and helplessness in his words. So what if he was not willing to leave? Now that the six realms had been destroyed, only the two seeds of the mortal world and the demon world were left. Perhaps it would take hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of years for the six realms to reappear. In the end, you've deceived everyone. The Demon Emperor sighed. Jiangchen could not help but be dumbfounded. He had deceived everyone? When had he ever deceived anyone? However, the Demon Emperor did not explain. After taking a few more glances at Jiangchen, he waved his hand and said, "Go. The matter here is over. The return of the ancestors can't change anything." "Will the six realms reappear?" Jiangchen asked. "As long as the seeds are still there, the six realms will reappear." The Demon Emperor nodded, but there was a trace of sternness in his eyes. "However, I don't think the Great Thousand World will let the six realms reappear." "Why?" "They've already taken away the Invincible Realm's corpse. What does the reappearance of the six realms have to do with them?" Jiangchen was puzzled. As soon as he said that, the expressions of the people around him became strange, and a few of them even sneered. This was because they knew very well that in the eyes of the beings of the Great Thousand World, the Ancestral Realm, and even the six realms were special existences. Anyone or anything that was related to the Ancestral Realm was a threat to the Great Thousand World. They couldn't let the six realms reappear, just like the Ancestral Realm. Now, not only was it sealed, it was even cursed. If they wanted the six realms to reappear, the only way was to suppress the Greater Thousand Worlds. This way, The experts of the Great Thousand World would not have the time to care about the six realms, and the six realms would slowly recover. However, what should he do to distract the powerhouses of the great wide world? You are, at this moment, the skinny old man looked at Jiang Chun. His eyes flashed and he opened his mouth, but he didn't finish speaking. However, he was very excited and stared at Jiang Chun for a long time. At the same time, the others also stared at Jiang Chun. Apart from excitement, there was also doubt in their eyes. Jiang Chun had goosebumps all over his body from being stared at. His brows involuntarily furrowed as he asked, "Who am I? You don't even know who you are, and you're asking us?" The human emperor curled his lips. "That's enough. Maybe this is fate. Those who should come back and those who shouldn't, it's all fate." In the end, the human emperor and the demon emperor left. They still chose to stay here, to guard the blooming of the mortal world and the demon world. As for the ancestors, they didn't say much. They seemed very mysterious. After the human emperor and the demon emperor left, they also left one after another. In the end, only Jiang Chun, the people of the sky reaching school, and the red coat were left here. "Sect leader, what are your plans next?" Jiang Chun asked. Now that the six realms had been destroyed, the great Tao in this place was damaged, and everything had withered. Not only was it not suitable for cultivation, but it was also not suitable for living. "Of course, we're going to the Greater Thousand World," Katsura Matsuda said. "This place is not a place for people to stay." "Then, do you know how to get there?" Jiang Chun asked. As soon as he said this, Katsura Matsuda couldn't help but blink and ask curiously, "You don't know?" Why would I know?" Jiang Chun asked in return. Katsura Matsuda was speechless when he heard this. He rolled his eyes and said, "We'll follow the coordinates left by the ancestor later, but those coordinates, I see. You mean you can't bring me along?" Jiang Chun reacted quickly and didn't blame Katsura Matsuda. He knew that there was probably something wrong with the coordinates, so he couldn't bring him along. However, the red coat and the skinny old man were here. These two ancestors should have a map to the Greater Thousand World, right? However, when he asked, the two of them didn't know anything. Back then, when they left the six realms and went to the ancestral realm, they directly used the teleportation formation. That was a starfield teleportation formation, which could directly send them to the Greater Thousand World and cross many starfields. Therefore, they were still quite vague and couldn't determine the specific range of the Greater Thousand World. Moreover, now that the six realms had been destroyed, the starfield teleportation formation that was left in the six realms had also disappeared. Now, if they wanted to go to the Greater Thousand World, they had to think of a way themselves. Of course, the skinny old man had left the coordinates in the Greater Thousand World, so he could bring Katsura Matsuda and the others along. However, the red coat and Jiang Chun, are you going to the Greater Thousand World too? Jiang Chun looked at the red coat and didn't know how to address her. Especially when he looked at the red coat's unchanged appearance. Jiang Chun's emotions were very complicated. The red coat was also a little absent-minded. She had been searching her previous memories. At this moment, when she looked at Jiang Chun, there was a trace of complicated emotions in her eyes. "I'd better return to the ancestral realm. There are still many things waiting for me there." The redcoat said, "If you don't know how to get there, you can follow me. It just so happens that the journey from here to the Greater Thousand World is long, so the two of us will have a companion." When Jiang Chun heard this, he immediately agreed. With an ancestor accompanying him, the journey could be considered safe no matter what. In the end, everyone said goodbye. After taking a look at the six realms that had turned into ruins, they set off on their journey. Before heading to the Greater Thousand World, Jiang Chun asked the red coat to search the ruins of the six realms to find the whereabouts of the moon god. However, the red coat told Jiang Chun that there was no aura of the moon god in the six realms. According to the red coat, if the moon god had died in the six realms, he should have been able to find her corpse or even a wisp of her remnant soul. Now that nothing could be found, there was only one possibility. The moon god had left the six realms. It's good that she's fine," Jiang Chun said softly. In the end, The two of them took a deep look at the ruins and left. After coming out of the ruins of the Six Realms, Jiang Chun and the Red Coat walked forward. There were stars everywhere, but they were also accompanied by coldness. This was the star region, also known as the universe. If the southern wall of the Six Realms had not been broken, Jiang Chun might have thought that the world was only so big and that the Six Realms were the entire world. However, now it seemed that he was just a frog at the bottom of a well. In the vast and boundless starry sky, there were many living stars. Each star was a so-called world. The Greater Thousand World is full of strange things. After entering the Greater Thousand World, you have to be careful in everything you do, the Red Coat reminded him. But her expression was rather strange. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.